Christ Apostolic here. Pastor Richard Hazlett is my name. That's not my birth or given name. My birth and given name was Richard Hazlett, but being in this office, in this position, we say Shabbat Shalom, welcome to all of you. We salute all the kings and the queens that are out there that are joining us, all the brothers and sisters, those who are born again, those who are walking in the Ruach, in the Spirit, to all of our Hebrews, Shebrews, those who will be listening in on today. We say Shabbat Shalom. We welcome each and every one of you. We are grateful that he's given us another day. Everything was timed. When you look at Israel and his people, everything was centered around the beginning and the end. Everything was centered around the Shabbat. When they would recognize the Shabbat or the Sabbath, that was the only day that had a name. Actually, the rest of the days in the Hebrew is called Yom, but the rest of the Yoms were just 1, 2, 3, and they would just count them up into the Shabbat, and then they knew that was the seventh day was the day and the time to rest, to come in from the fields, to come in from your labors, and to rest. And so the days, and one thing I want to say as we go into this class is there is a word that you might hear from time to time, especially if you do your research on the Shabbat, and you'll see the word Sabbaton in the Hebrew. And the Sabbaton was the daylight hours. So you had the Shabbat day that would start at either 6 p.m., depending on where you were, mainly where they were in Northeast Africa and in that area there. It was around 6 p.m. Or when the sun went down, and that's what started the Shabbat day. They would count that up. The evening would always precede the day. So you had the Shabbat day, then you had Sabbaton. Sabbaton was the hours of when the sun was up. When the actual sun was up was the Sabbaton. So when they would approach the Sabbath day that evening at 6 p.m. when the sun went down on day 6, that's when the Sabbath started. But they would not, they were not out in the fields. They were not working. They were not doing anything. When the sun went down, that's when everybody went in. They rested. That was just typical. When the sun went down, you weren't really working. When the sun came back up on the Sabbaton, that's when they would actually, if it wasn't the Sabbath, that's when they actually did their work. If you go to the 15th chapter of Numbers, where it talks about the young man that broke the Sabbath, he didn't break the Sabbath at sundown, and from the time that the sun was down to the time that the sun went up, that's not when he broke Sabbath. He broke Sabbath on Sabbaton during the daylight hours, because during the daylight hours, they were not supposed to gather the wood, start the fire, do the work, put their mules out, put their oxen out in the field, they weren't allowed to do that on Sabbaton. So sometimes we look at, what can I do, on the Sabbath, and we want to keep it simple. We definitely want to keep it simple because it's meant to be simple. It's not complicated. But on Sabbaton, that's when we actually do our rest. We refrain from building fires and working and doing things like that. Now, what about, when the sun goes down on day 6 before Sabbaton comes? Because again, Sabbaton is from the sunrise to the sunset. The Sabbath is from sundown on the 6th to the sundown on the 7th. Does that make sense to anybody? Does it make any sense? Does it make sense to you? I mean, when you say the Sabbath, you're talking about the whole day, evening to evening. That's the whole day. That's when you celebrate your Sabbath. But when you hear them say Sabbaton was the daylight hours on the Sabbath. Yeah. You have the daylight hours on the Sabbath. which they call it Sabbaton, because that all that means is that the sun is up, it's daylight, you can see, so you have Sabbaton. But when you look in Leviticus 23, it says from evening to evening you'll celebrate your Sabbath, because it was a full day was a Sabbath, but Sabbaton was just the daylight hours. So in the 15th chapter of Numbers, that's when they actually, the young man was out on Sabbaton picking up sticks and working, and because he was going to build a fire and all this. And so they said, no, you can't do that on Sabbaton, not during the daylight hours. Well, why didn't he? Can he do it in the evening hour? Well, when the sun went down, and we're going to go and celebrate tabernacles, and you're going to find out when the sun goes down, it gets pretty dark. It gets pretty dark. They didn't have the street lights and everything that we have now. Now, they did have candles and lanterns. They did have that they would, use at night. But when the sun went down, you weren't out in no field gathering sticks, working, or doing anything like that, because you couldn't see. It was dark. But Sabbaton now, when the sun was up, that was restricted. You ain't supposed to go out in the fields and do the work. So that's what we see in the 15th chapter of Numbers, when he went out into the field to gather the sticks and everything. So I say that because, some people want to know, can we, is turning on the oven or building a fire, we're not out gathering sticks, building a fire. Now, we kind of refrain from using our appliances, but if you use an appliance, you're not actually doing the work. Yes.
I saw somewhere when I was looking at it, they said that you couldn't water your plants. It was forbidden. And trees, because it was part of nourishing and
yeah. I mean,
what I was doing, I said, wow.
Yeah. I mean, you can water your plants on the 6th day. You can water your plants on the 1st day. It's not, missing one day is. Now, we are in the time where the earth is being scorched now. I mean, temperatures are rising around the earth. There's fires all over the earth. Not just here in the United States, but there's fires over in Russia. Siberia, they say Siberia is burning up. I mean, all you got to do is look it up on Google. The fires of Russia, they'll tell you about Siberia that's burning. Italy, Greece. Greece is on fire. Italy is burning up. The heat dome. You know what they call it over there in Italy? Does anybody know what they're calling this heat dome now and what's burning? Anybody in the chat room? Do you know what they're calling this heat dome and the fire that's burning over in Italy? They've given it a name. Does anybody know? You can probably look it up. Anybody in the chat room? Do you know what they're calling this heat dome and the fires that are burning over there in Italy? And this came out of Italy. Nobody knows? Nobody's. They call it. Anybody in the chat? Let's wait for a second here. What they're calling this over in Italy. Now we have the heat dome that we have in the Pacific Northwest and out west. That, and even coming over here somewhat. They're talking about how the temperatures are going to rise, and they have risen. I mean, it's been pretty hot. We're in a good spot here, though. It hasn't been so bad here. But they call it Lucifer. Yeah, that's right. Over in Italy. Did you hear about that? They're calling this. They're calling the high temperatures and the fires that are raging and the flooding that's going on. They've got flooding in a lot of those places in Italy and Greece, and fire. So they got rain and fire, and they call this Lucifer. I found that interesting. Yeah, in the chat room. Yeah, Sister Laney Barber put down Lucifer. That's what they're calling it, Lucifer. So I thought that was kind of interesting. They'd call it Lucifer, and then also interesting is how when you look at Greece and Italy, what came out of Greece? What came out of Greece? The gods and everything. But now, going back to the prophets, what came out of Greece? Huh? Yeah, Yeah, I mean, they like to call themselves scholarly and wisdom, the philosophers. Philosophers come from Greece. But something else that Greece is known for, they're gods. And in the vision that Daniel had, how many beasts did he see? Didn't he see four beasts? And he couldn't understand what, he couldn't understand that vision, and he fasted and prayed, and he didn't eat anything or drink any wine for 21 days. And then the angel came and says, well, I'm going to tell you what the meaning of that beast is. And who was the third beast? Anybody? Who was the third beast? No, I'm getting ready to ask that next. But what empire preceded the Roman Empire? No, it was a Greek empire. It was a Greek empire that came in before the time of Christ, 200 to 300 years before the time of Christ. And who was their great conqueror? Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, who was over the Greek Empire, that led the Greek Empire and expanded the Greek Empire. And that was the third beast that Daniel had seen. Then the fourth beast, like Deacon Fulton said, the fourth beast was who now? It was the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire that came in, that was the fourth beast. And I just find it interesting that Italy and Greece is on fire and flooding. I mean, and Italy calls it Lucifer. Lucifer is upon us. So that's interesting. So we're seeing some judgment that is coming, and we have to have strong hearts, and we can't be controlled by fear, because we're going to see a lot of atrocities. You're going to see a lot of calamities. You're going to see a lot of things that's going to come upon the face of the earth. But you can't be fearful to where your heart will fail you for fear. In St. Luke chapter 21 and verse number 26. Well, we'll see. Let's look at verse 21 and 25 and 26. St. Luke 21. Verse 25 and 26. And it says, there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations. Distress of nations with perplexity. The sea and the waves roaring. And then what did the Mashiach say? Men's hearts failing them from what? Failing them for fear. So those of us who are walking in light, our hearts shouldn't fail us. We should not be so fearful unto death. This is what the fearful unto death. People are so afraid that their heart is going to fail them. Heart disease, heart problems, stress upon the body, and it just brings down the body. It reduces your health. And so he's saying, men's hearts are going to fail them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. So when we see everything that's happening around the earth, we can't be fearful. We can't allow that to bring in fear and doubt. You have to rest assured on the light that you're walking in, and the salvation. You have to be assured in that and know without any shadow of doubt, who you are, the faith you have, and whom you're walking with, without any shadow of a doubt. We have to know that, what we're walking in. So He has not given us the spirit of fear, but he's given us the spirit of love, power. Isn't that what the apostle Shaul told Timotheus? Love, power, and what? A sound mind. So I look at all the atrocities and the things that are happening around the world. I don't have a fearful heart. Because I know, like Jesus said here, the things that are coming on the earth, these things have to happen. It has to happen. So I'm not, I rest each and every day on knowing who he is and walking in that light. Walking in that light, walking in that understanding, and knowing the purpose for him and the reason that he came, and then the purpose and the reason for him in my life, without any shadow of a doubt, and being strong in the faith. Now, on the class we were just in, the last verse that we finished up with is St. John Yahuchanan, chapter 14 and verse number 6. Yahuchanan 14, verse number 6. Now, on today, you'll hear me use some of the Hebrew names, the restored names on this Shabbat. And I just want to set this out here because I don't want anybody to be offended. I'm not coming after your faith. You walk in the light and the understanding that you have and the faith that you have in him. I have, in my research and my study, I have grown and I am understanding some things. And one of the things that I understand is that this book and the sacred scriptures and the prophecy and our Messiah, it was given unto a Hebrew people and a nation called Yasharal. That's who it was given unto. And so in my research and my study going back, because our Messiah, that's one thing that he would do. He would always go back. Let me take you back and let's journey through this so you can have an understanding of what's going on today. Let me say this. If you don't have the light of history, you don't have the light of the future. Or if you don't have the light of history, you don't have the light of day. Because none of us that are here right now in this building here and in the chat room and then on Virtual House, none of us are here without any history at all. You didn't just walk up in here with no history. Nobody has. In fact, as soon as you call on mama and daddy, grandma and grandpa, you're dealing with history. Why? Because you're going back in time. Mom, dad predated you. Grandma, grandpa predated you. So you're going back in time. A lot of times we sit around the campfire in our family tables and everything, and we talk about things of the past. We talk about family history. Why do you think you have so many family reunions? Everybody have even once a year, once every 2 years, or how often we have family reunions, because you're dealing with the story of your family, history of your family. So nobody can walk in the light of day without the light of history. And so when I speak on today, it's not to offend anyone, but you have to understand. All of our scholars today, our teachers and our preachers and our scholars today must understand, and many of them will tell you, that when they do their study and their research, if they want to really go back into this book, they have to go back to the origin. Even when you read, and we read here in St. John, Yahuchanan 14 and 6, and Jesus, Yahusha saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Now, everybody in the sound of my voice, and those who are tuning in and even in the house here, all of us know that our Messiah did not speak English. All of us know that. We know that. We know that the dominant languages, or the most popular languages at the time in Northeast Africa, where he lived and came to this earth, and in that region there, the dominant languages were Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. And it even says that in Yahuchanan, the 19th chapter and the 19th verse, the 20th verse. It even talks about up on the cross there, it was written in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. There was no English. So any scholar, anybody that's scholarly today, any shepherd, anybody that's feeding you with knowledge and understand that you look up to as being very influential in your life because of the wisdom, the knowledge, and because of their ability to teach, and they're the ones that you heard the message of the gospel and the good news and repentance, and you came into the faith and understanding being born, and all of that rolled up into one. They have to admit that this book was not written in English. So what they do then is they go back to the language in which it was written in to get, an understanding. If our Messiah spoke English and he came out of England, an Anglo-Saxon, then I could just read this book and take it as face value from English. But knowing that it was not written in English and he didn't come from Anglo-Saxon England, now I want to see, well, where did you get it from? Because I got to check you out to make sure what you're telling me is truth. When you look at I am the way, the truth, anybody that runs from truth will run from the Messiah. If you're running from truth, you're running. He is truth. There's no lie in him. There's no darkness in him. I said on Wednesday, he said it in his word in Yahuchanan, the 8th chapter. He says, I am the light of the world. The whole world. He lit up the. So in him is truth. So if I run from truth, I'm running from light. And if I'm running from light, I'm running from him. So all of your scholars and your shepherds and your pastors and your elders and your district elders and your bishops, and you can put a title on them. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not caught up in titles, but whatever you want to put a title on them. If they're really sound in this book, they'll tell you, yeah, I know it was written. They got it from the Latin Vulgate, the Greek Septuagint. But where did the Greek Septuagint get it from? Well, the Greek Septuagint got it from the Hebrews, the Hebrew language and the Hebrew dialect. And so you'll hear me say a lot of things today in the restored Hebrew words and things like that, not to offend anybody, but just to give you a, this is how it all started. That's how it all started. Back in the day, nobody called him Jesus. I don't mean to offend nobody, please. I'm not trying to offend you. This is not to offend anybody. Thank you. To cause anybody to lose faith. That's not what this is about. It's not about, well, he's trying to attack your faith. He's trying to be. No, it's not. I'm not trying to. You can call him that if you want to. You can say John. I said John all my life until I learned. And in this book here, this is a Sefer here, and it's got a lot of the original names in the Sefer. And there's other books out there that has the Hebrew names in the book. I have a app in my computer here to where I can pull up all different kind of languages. I can pull up the Latin. I can pull up the Greek. I can pull up the Hebrew. I got different versions. There's on this app here, it has the Bible, the Hebrew name Bible. So when I go and I study in that book, as I'm referencing scriptures, looking at different versions and different names, as I reference the Hebrew name Bible, then I see the restored names. And it's not to offend anybody. Let's look at this. Let's look at John 14:6. And it says, Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Now, let's look up this. Since it wasn't written in English, it was written in Greek. Now, let's go to the Greek. Let's go to the Greek And in the Greek, Jesus is G2424. Am I correct? Am I walking in truth? Am I walking in truth? Okay. I mean, am I lying to anybody? Y'all, you have to check me out now. Check me out. Am I walking in truth or am I lying? Okay. Jesus is G2424. That's what it is. So I go to the G2424 and I find out in Greek, his name Greek is Iesus. Iesu. In Greek, his name is Iesu. Iesu. So if I'm reading in the Greek Septuagint or the letters of the Greek language when they were given to the Greek letters were given to Eusebius, who they changed his name to Jerome, called him Saint Jerome. But Eusebius took those Greek letters and the Septuagint and he translated it into Latin. So as he translated Iesu from Greek into Latin, in the Greek he's seen Iesu, but then he translated that into Latin. And in Latin it's Izu, Izu, or Isus. Isus or Izu in the Latin. But what does it say here? What is Iesu? Is that his original name, Iesu? His original name, it says of Hebrew origin. So everything in this book, when you go to the Greek, you have to understand that it comes from the Hebrew. So if I want to get to the origin, or if I want to go back to the beginning, now I got to go back to the original language in which it was written in. Now, does that take away from the power or the authority of the name? No. We know that because we've seen it. We've been around here too long. We've seen the power that is in his English name. We don't speak Greek, but we speak English. So that name from Greek was translated into Latin and then from Latin into English. But the origin of it, you have to go all the way back to the Hebrew to get the origin. So some people get offended by that. Some people will lose faith over it, or some people will shut you down. I don't want to hear it. And I mean, if you do that, I'm not here to offend anyone, but that's very elementary. You're still in kindergarten. You're still in kindergarten. I mean, he's given us a name under heaven that we can go to and use that name. So in John 14:6 here, Yahukanan 14:6, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So I have to know that way. I have to know the way. If he's saying, I am the way, I have to know that. That would be of importance to me. I have to find that way. Now, where do you think I'm going to find that way? When he said unto his people, he said, I am the way, just kind of trying to set some things, in to build a base and to build this. We are on this side of the resurrection, right? We're on this side of the resurrection. Everything that has happened in history has preceded us. So where I'm at today, it's not difficult for me to understand that he is the way. I mean, for us, when you talk to us, he said unto them, I am the way. Well, that's no big thing to us. because we can understand it. We're sitting on this side of the cross. We're sitting on this side of the resurrection. But we can't get too comfortable in that. Now, why would I say we can't get too comfortable in that? And that, anybody in the chat room, anybody, why would I say we can't get too comfortable in saying, oh yeah, I know he's the way. When he says, I am the way, I just readily accept it and believe it. He's the way. Anybody out there? Okay. Others have said they're the way. Others have said they're the way. Let me show you why everything has to be tried and everything has to be there. You've got to have some foundational truth or something to prove yourself. First, let's go to 1 Thessalonians 5:21. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Let's go there first. And what does that say? Remember now, the Mashiach said, he said in Yahuchanan 14:6, what did he say? I am the way. Very first thing he said, I am the way. Now, 1 Thessalonians 5:21 tells us we got to do what? Prove all things. Hold fast to that which is good. But he tells us to prove all things. So even teachers and preachers and everybody, I mean, even fathers and mothers, when they have to, and we're raising children and raising grandchildren, and we're trying to, teach them, and because it is our parental responsibility, we have a generational responsibility unto our Father in heaven to teach our children, teach our sons, and to teach our sons to be teachers so they can teach their son. I mean, that's a generational responsibility that he's given all fathers. Teach your sons, and you teach your sons how to teach their sons. Because do you know what he gave Abraham was never to have been forsaken? What he had given Abraham, what he had given to Yishak, Isaac, what he had given to Jacob, that responsibility was never to be forsaken. Because then Yasharal becomes a nation in captivity, and Moshe comes out with the same things that he had taught Abraham and told him, teach this to your what? Sons. You teach it to your children. Teach it to your sons. And your sons are to teach it to their sons. Because what he had given Abraham was never to leave the house. Now, y'all need to hear me good. It was never to leave the house. What do you mean by it was never supposed to leave the house? What I mean by that, it's never supposed to leave the house. It was never supposed to be forgotten. And if you did it if it was a duty and responsibility and it was a generational teaching, it was never to leave the house. What he promised Abraham, what he promised Yishak, what he promised Jacob, it should have never left the house. So my sons and my grandsons should know this. Well, because you got people today growing up, we ain't never heard that. We ain't never heard that. Well, somebody dropped the baton, not baton, but somebody dropped the ball, somebody dropped the the baton, and over in England they call it the baton. Somebody dropped the baton. Somebody dropped it. Yeah, and it's. I'm not here to argue with anybody. I've got to, oh, yeah.
Matthew says, if you bring it to them and they don't receive it,
Brush the dust. Yeah, brush the dust off your feet and keep on. It doesn't say stand and fight. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. Did y'all hear that? He told Moses, he said, it's not you they're rejecting, it's me. So, no, I think it was Moshe, wasn't it? I thought it. Okay. I'm not saying it's not there, but yeah, I think I kind of recall Musha.
But it's not the thing that they're rejecting. It's what they're saying is that you went one way and then you turned it around and went a different direction. And we got this stuff in our head. Now we got to pick up something else. More in depth. It's more in depth. Well, it's more culturally based. Well, we're talking about changing the name of Jesus. They used to call him on Jesus. Now he's going to do it.
Yeah, and you could call on Jesus. You can call on Jesus. What I'm trying to do is bring out some knowledge. Understanding is light. Right. If you're walking in light, you're walking in understanding. Right. I've told them take the blindfold off me. I'm tired of it. You got to have blind faith. No, I don't have no blind faith. I can see. I want to be able to see. And I don't want to be blind. Yes. It might be he kind of blinded their eyes because he does tell them they got to wake out of sleep. So how you gonna wake out of sleep if you ain't sleep or and then in the 11th chapter of Romans it talks about they were blinded. And he actually blinded them for the Gentiles' sake, that he could bring in the Gentiles and graft them into Israel. And made them jealous. Right. So it's multi-purpose. But the things that I'm saying unto everybody that's listening, the things that I'm saying should have been passed down from one generation to another. I'm not speaking anything. When people say he's come up with something new, how could you say, I ain't speaking nothing but what was written in the book? Open up the book and read. What I'm saying is not new. Even talking about the Shabbat and the Sabbath, that's not new. That ain't no new doctrine. It's something that had been forsaken. That's all it was. And so prove all things. So let me prove something here. Let's go to the book of Acts of the Apostles, chapter 11 and verse number 25. Acts chapter 11, verse number 25. Then departed Barnabas, or Bar-Abbas, which means son of the fathers. This is what Barnabas to Tarsus for to seek Shaul. And when he had found him, when Barnabas had found Shaul, he brought him unto Antioch. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church, or the ecclesia. They assembled themselves with the ecclesia and taught much people. For a whole year now they're doing this. And where are they doing this? In what city? Antioch. And the disciples were called Christians first, where? In Antioch. Now notice now, the ecclesia, they were assembled with the ecclesia, and they did this for the space of a year in Antioch. And they were first called Christians in Antioch. So let's see what they did for the space of a year. Because in the next chapter or the next verse or the next, part of the text here going into the 12th chapter, they had left Antioch. After being there for a year, they had left Antioch. Okay, now let's go to Acts chapter 13, verse number Acts 13. Let's look at verse 1, and then I'm going to go down to verse 12. Let's look at verse 1, Acts 13, verse 1, and then I'm going to go down to verse 13. Acts 13:1, and then we'll drop down to verse 13. I don't want to read all of this. Now, there were in the ecclesia, the church, that was at Antioch, certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas, Simeon, that was called Niger, and some people say Niger. That's not how you pronounce it. It's pronounced Niger. Well, how do you know? You can't say that. Yeah, well, let's look it up. Let's look it up. Niger in the Greek, G3526. G3526 in the Greek. This is a strong concordance, or strong. G3526. Look at it. Of Latin origin, black, Niger, a Christian. Notice now how it's pronounced. Niger. I'm not using, because some people say, oh, you're offending me. You're using, no, I'm not using the N word, please. I'm not. We're not doing that. You look at it Niger, and they want to change it from Niger to Niger. And so that's how they pronounce it, Niger and everything. That's not how it's pronounced in the Latin. In the Latin, it's pronounced Niger. He was Simon the Niger. And so what does it mean he was Simon the Niger? He was Simon the Black. Simon must have been black. I mean, not like we call black people, but he must have been, like the Nubians or those in South Egypt. They were the ones who were very dark complexion, and so he kind of stood out. Man, this he's Simon the Niger. Now we use it differently today, but that's what it was. And Simon was a Christian because he was in Antioch, and they were first called Christians in Antioch. Also, Lucius of Cyrene, which is a country in North Africa, and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch and Shaul. So let's go down to verse number 13, Acts 13 and verse number 13. Now, when Shaul and his company loose from Paphos, they came to Perga in Pamphylia, and John or Yehuchanan, departing from them, returned to Jerusalem. And this is Yehuchanan that was there because he had left Jerusalem, but mainly he stayed in Jerusalem until they banned him to the Isle of Patmos. Verse number 14. But when they departed from Perga, where did they go? They came to Antioch in Pisidia and went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and sat down. Because this is what they did. Notice now in chapter 11, it talked about in Antioch. He had been in Antioch for a whole year, the space of a year, and he met with the ecclesia. Remember, it said church, ecclesia. He met with them for the space of a whole year and taught them. So when did he meet with the ecclesia, who were first called Christians in Antioch? When did he meet with them? No, when did he meet? For the space of a year, he met with the ecclesia or the church. He would meet with them on the Sabbath. The first Christians would come into the synagogue on the Sabbath, and they did it for at least a year. Now, we know that was their custom and their practice. They always did it. They did it throughout the whole book of Acts. So if people say, well, I'm a Christian, well, why don't you do what the first Christians did? Just do what the first Christians did. That's that simple. They went into the synagogue on the Sabbath, the first Christians. Ask your pastor, your teacher, your shepherd, your feeder, ask them, what did the first Christians do? If they can't take you here, then they have another. Right. It's that simple. I'm not trying to complicate anything. Again, I'm not trying to destroy anybody's faith. This is a ministry of light. It's a ministry of understanding. If you can't walk in the light of today, then you don't know the light of history. And if you don't know the light of history, you can't walk in the light of today. That's just my saying. Okay, so they went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and sat down. And verse number 15, and after reading of the law and the prophets, the rulers of the synagogue sent unto them, saying, men, brethren, if ye have any word of exhortation for the people, say on. They gave Shaul a light or a foot in the door. And what did he do? He said, let's go now. He said, you should have never let me in. So now I'm going to speak. So let's see what he talked about. Because what he talked about, if you read into this chapter, what he talked about is some very profound things. But he talked to the men of Yasharal. Notice now, verse 16, then Shaul stood up, beckoned with his hand, said, men of Yasharal, and ye that fear Elohim, give audience. So he's talking to Yasharal first, but he's also talking to those who fear Elohim. Now we have to, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now notice now, a year had passed. He had left because he was there in Antioch for a year. He had left. He went. Now he's going back. So we're talking about time. We're talking about some time that happened here. Now there was some conflict because it was like you're letting Gentiles in. You're letting them in the synagogue because a synagogue was not a place for Gentiles. But if you keep reading down here in chapter 13, you'll find out that, well, let's just go down here real quick and I want to come back. Let's go down to verse chapter 13, verse 42. And when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them on the first day of the week, on day one. Hey, Shaul, I know it's the Sabbath, but can you stay tomorrow and teach this to us tomorrow? You won't find that anywhere in Scripture. You won't find that anywhere in Scripture. You have your hand up? Okay, I thought you raised your hand. They besought Shaul and said, preach this, preach now. Notice, they said, preach to us on the next Shabbat. Come on up here the next Shabbat and preach to us. Now, these are Christians, right? We're talking about Christians, right? The book tells us they was first called Christians in Antioch. He's in Antioch on the Sabbath teaching. The Gentile says, you got to preach this to us on the next Shabbat. In Antioch. So if you are claiming to be Christian and you're against the Shabbat, what happened? What happened? Because the first Christians was in the synagogue on the Shabbat and told Shaul, now, you better preach this to us on the next Shabbat. We coming back on the next Shabbat. We want you to preach it to us. Well, what happened? Because all throughout this book, you'll find out that it was the custom and the practice of Shaul to go into the synagogue on the Sabbath. Let's go to Acts. Is it 16? No, it's Acts 17. I'm sorry, Acts 17 and verse number 2. Acts 17 and verse number 2. And Shaul, what does that say? As his custom or manner was. As his manner or custom was. Shaul practiced what? Went in unto them and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the scriptures. So his custom and practice. So if the Mashiach did it, now we know the Mashiach did, right? Okay. Luke 4:16. Luke 4:16. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read. So the Mashiach did it. Shaul did it. The first Christians did it. All of Antioch did it. Everywhere Shaul went, when we see Acts 17, everywhere he went, it was his manner and his custom. Now, 2 Corinthians 2 Corinthians 13 and verse 1. Shaul said, this is the 3rd time I am coming to you. Now he states a principle. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be what? Mashiach did it. That's 1 witness. Shaul did it. That's 2 witnesses. The first Christians did it. That's 3 witnesses. How many more witnesses you need? That's not good enough for you? The Mashiach, Christ, that's not good enough for you? Shaul, Paul, that's not good for you? The first Christian, I'm a Christian. Why don't you do what the Christians did? That's not good enough for you? So you have people who still want to confront and argue. So what happened? If we can build doctrinal truth through this book on what they did, and you still have a problem with it, something has happened. Something happened. Yes. Yes, good morning. Shabbat Shalom. The number of the day?
Right, because when we go to church on Sunday, we feel we are doing what the first Christians did.
Right, but who sold us that ticket? Because now what you just said happened well before any of our grandpappies were even thought of. What you're talking about. You can't look at this generation and you can't look at the previous generation. I can't look at the former pastor, my father, Bishop Boyd. I can't look at them because all of this was done before their time. It was all done before their time. My position and my argument is not against anybody of this day. My position is against a Roman emperor. That's who I'm up against. I'm up against a Roman emperor by the name of Constantine.
I know that history, but what I'm bringing up, some people, they don't know that Sunday is the first day.
Right, right. I mean that it is the first day of the week, but that's not when they assembled.
Right.
And they assembled on the Shabbat, on the Sabbath.
And they try to use Monday as the first day.
Yeah, but it's
Calendar, Sunday's the first day of the week.
yeah,
But I guess they use it as an argument.
yeah. And that's how, but see what kind of practice is that? It starts with a D. What kind of practice is that? It's a DEC deceptive practice. That's a very deceptive practice. Because they'll make you think the first day is the seventh day and the second day is the first day. Just like they tell us September is the 9th month when it's the 7th. October is the 10th month when it's the 8th. And so December, that's not the 12th month, it's the 10th. Yeah, yes.
And then a lot of times the devil will tell you, well, it doesn't have any preference of day. I remember one time we were building the church. We were out there working on Sunday, and the guy asked us, "You guys working on the Sabbath? You guys,
Uh-huh.
you figured out that we're working on Sunday,
Right.
It seems like you were saying earlier. A lot of times when we look at people on the Sabbath, it was like all against them. It was like they make a joke out of, oh, you go to church on Saturday, making fun of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they have.
But Jehovah's Witnesses go on Saturday.
Yeah.
There was a girl at my
Yeah,
job who
yeah.
didn't work on Saturday. She was a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, because they know the Sabbath day. They know Sabbath.
There's another Vianney, St. John Vianney,
Uh-huh.
over in Beckendorf goes on the Sabbath day.
There's some people, and more people are waking up now. More people are waking up because, and it has to happen because we're in the end time. We're coming to the end. So we're coming to the end of an age, of an eon. We're coming to the end of an eon. So he has to enlighten and wake up people. He just has to do it. Somebody might have seen the Hall of Fame speech by Isaac Bruce. Somebody might have seen that. And at the end of his speech, he said something that I had said before. I was trying to get used to saying it every time we dismissed. But he said, Baruch haba Hashem Yahweh. But, he says Yahweh, I say Yahuwah. But Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. What is that? What is Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah? What does that mean? So you have to go to Matthew 23 and verse number 39. Let's see if we are in the book. Matthew 23:39. Let's see if Isaac Bruce and everybody else who says it, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah, let's see if you're in the book. Matthew 23:39. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth till ye shall say. Now he's talking about the nation. He's talking about his people. He's not talking about an individual. He's not talking about me. Richard, not until you say that. That's when I'm coming. He's not talking about me individually. He's talking about ye. He's talking about all the people. He said, when all of y'all get together and all of you say, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah, that's when he's going to reach. He said, that's when you're going to see me. That's when you're going to see me. So there's some things that has to happen in order for this to happen. It just has to happen. So we're starting to see a lot of enlightenment in this day. We're starting to see the the light of day Um, what I wanted to say, dealing with the book of Acts where we were, and how, why don't you do what the first Christians did? So in Acts 13 and verse number, look at verse number 15. And after the reading of the law and the prophets, the rulers of the synagogue sent unto him, saying, Ye men, brethren, if ye have any word of exhortation for the people, say on. So we see Shaul got up. So what they would do on the Shabbat is that they would read the law and they would read the prophets. That's what they would do. That was their custom. Isn't that what the Mashiach did? We read it in Luke 4:16, right? He got the book. It was on the Shabbat. He got the book and he stood up in the midst of them. And what did he read? Anybody know what he read? Isaiah? Yeah. Isaiah, what was it, chapter 61? Is that what he wrote? I mean, I know they don't have chapters. They didn't have chapters, but I think it was what we call chapter 61 in Isaiah. Yashayahu. That's what he read. And then he said, this day is this verse fulfilled in your ears. Notice now, he said in their ears, because it was, the word has to be relevant for you at that day and time. Otherwise, it's not the living word. It becomes a dead word. If the word is not relevant for you in your day and time and what you're going through and everything, if the word is not relevant to you, then it's not the living word. Because the living word must be relative. It must relate to me where I'm at in my day and time of the history of man. It has to be relative to me. And so he said, this day is this verse fulfilled in your ears. So it was relative for that day and time. Now, we keep reading in Isaiah 61. We start to hear some other things that has to be relevant in the day and time that it's in. The prophets that spoke so many years ago, many of the things that they spoke are yet relative today. That's why they must be spoken. That's why they would do it on the side. We got to hear the prophets, because the prophets tell of the future. This is the living word. It's going to deal with me, and it's going to be relative for me in my day. In my day. So he gets up and he begins to speak. And then some of the things I want to bring out. Well, let's look at verse 17. Elohim of this people of Yasharah chose our fathers. Now, if somebody has a problem with this, well, you have to take it up with him. You just have to take it up with him. You can't. Don't get mad at the preacher. I mean, you got folks get mad at the preacher. I don't like what he says. Don't get mad at. Open up your book and read. Now, if you think that if you have a problem with that, well, then stand in his counsel. Let's go to Job 38. Job 38:1. For anybody who wants to question the Most High on why he chose those people. Notice now, when Shaul was teaching this, was he teaching before the resurrection or after the resurrection? Well, that's a simple question. He was teaching after the resurrection. Yeah, so, I mean, he's speaking after the resurrection. But anybody who wants to question him, notice how he dealt with Job. Then Yah answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? So you want to talk, well, I don't like what he says. You're talking about Israel. I don't like none of that. Well, who are you that darkeneth counsel with words without knowledge? I'll just let the Most High talk to you. I'll open up the book and read. We'll let the Most High talking to you. Gird up now thy loins like a man. Take it like a man now. I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where was thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Where was you? Man, none of us was even thought of. He hadn't even made Adam yet. He ain't made Adam yet. We wasn't even thought. And you want to counsel him? He said, where were you when I laid the... Declare if thou hast understanding. Now, he about to blow your mind. And we ain't going to go through all this, but just when he says, who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest, or who hath stretched the line upon it? There's some other things he says in here that would just absolutely blow your mind if you really dig into listen to what he says, especially when he talks about the Shamayim and the heavens and what it's comprised of. I mean, it's a shocker. It's a shocker because we think that it's just empty space because that's just a little bit of knowledge and understanding that we have. And everybody around here, your understanding and knowledge comes from NASA. It don't come from this book. It comes from NASA. Well, they're the scientists. We have to listen to them. We have to believe them. That's how you see everything is through the lens of NASA. But now if you look up the word NASA in Hebrew, what does it stand for, Brother Parker? You told me what NASA stood for in Hebrew, in the Hebrew language. NASA. You told me one time. Okay. Yes.
While he's thinking about it, I just saw something on a study yesterday. COVID-19 asked about it in Hebrew. It said habitation and community.
Oh, okay. If you say it in Hebrew. Yeah, I know one thing that the pandemic that's out there, it's there to bring about fear. It's there to bring about fear, and they're using it, to push their agenda and everything. And I'm telling folks, just don't be fearful. Don't let no fear come on you. Don't let them just run amok with your life. And there's a lot of stuff that's got to happen. This stuff is it has to happen if we want to see the end of this age. It just has to happen. And there's some things that's happening that was prophesied by the prophets thousands of years ago. Thousands of years. I mean, when do you want it to happen? I'm going to say I want to see it in my day. Now, I'm halfway through life, so because he reduced our life to 120 years. So I'm halfway there, but eventually we're going to have a commercial break here. But it's important because he wants us. If you look at the diet that they had when he reduced their years to 120 years, and you compare it to our diet, it's really different. It's really, really different. So if we can get back to that, well, there's a lot of pollution in the world. Yes, there is. There is a lot of pollution. And some of the things that they're doing is man-made. I mean, they're purposely doing it. So, even because some people say, well, even the fruits and the vegetables that you have now is not like the fruits and vegetables that they had back then, and it generated a lot of life and the healing potential came from the ground. And what came up from the ground, that's where our healing, even when you talk about the city called Shamayim, or the New Jerusalem, and around that river that comes out of the New Jerusalem, on both sides of the rivers was what? Both sides of the river was what? Trees, and the leaves on the trees were what? For the healing of the nation. So it's still, even in the new Shamayim and the new Arats, you're still going to have vegetation and trees, and you're still going to have the leaves that come off there for the healing of the nation, because there's going to be people on that new Arats. There's going to be people, and they're going to populate. I mean, for some reason or other, somebody wanted to close the door on us and just that nothing's out there after he comes back for the church. That's it. Everything goes blank, and there's no. There's still, and it's all written in Scripture. It's written in the prophets. If you don't believe the prophets, then you're not going to believe the future. And I'm going to send this challenge out there. Anybody that searches the prophets and that can show me in the prophets the future of the ecclesia, or those who are called out. Show me the future of those who are the called out ones in the prophets. That's a challenge. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you. There's a lot in the prophets about the future. I'm challenging you. Search the prophet. Isn't that what? I don't know. Do we listen? Do we listen? Yahuchanan 5:39. Yahuchanan 5:39. John. Yeah. Right. So I'll try. I'm just, on his Shabbat. Now, what's the Shabbat in his eyes? The Shabbat is a day that he set apart, or it's what? Holy. It's holy day. He says in Isaiah, Yashayahu, Isaiah, same person. He said in the 58th chapter of Isaiah, Yashayahu, the 13th verse, that he calls it my holy day. So, and why did he call it the holy day? Because when you look up the word holy, it means to be set apart, sanctified. The only day that he set apart and sanctified was the Shabbat. It's that only day. I don't care what Christian pastor, teacher, preacher, I don't care what any of them say. The only day that he set apart and called his holy day was the Shabbat. Now, he does tell you to keep every day what? Which means you need to be sanctified every day. Every day. Every day. So he says, search the scriptures, for in them ye think ye have what? And they are they which testify of me. Now, a few days ago, I was trying to tell you who they are they, because there's two theys there. So you have to know who's the they. And they are they. So you got to know who the theys are. But the scriptures, or the prophets, are the ones that will teach you, like he says here, for in them ye think ye have eternal life. Now, the scriptures he's talking about, there was no Matif Yahu, which is Matthew, no Matif Yahu, no Yahuchanan, no Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, or Acts. None of them had written anything when he said, search the scriptures. So when he said, search the scriptures, he's talking about the prophets. Moses was a prophet. Samuel was a prophet. David was a prophet. Isaac, you've got Ezekiel, Kazelkiel, I think that's how you pronounce it, Kazelkiel. Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Yirmiah, Amos, Malachi, Jonah, Habakkuk, Obadiah, Hosea, Joel, y'all, Malachi. I didn't hear somebody else. I'm listening for somebody else. Zephaniah, Micah, yeah, but Nahum. We're missing one. Habakkuk. Starts with a Z. Zephaniah is one, yeah. Zechariah. Because Zechariah has a lot to say about the end time and the new heaven and new earth. Zechariah has a lot to say about it. Huh? Which one? He's got 13 chapters in there. Oh, well, I mean, yeah. Isaiah has 66. Yeah. But his precept was just longer than some of the other ones. Jeremiah wrote 2 precepts, which was the book after his name, and then what was the other precept he wrote? Lamentation. Daniel wrote a precept. They all wrote precepts. Some were longer than others. Now, those precepts that they wrote were on like a scroll, but there was no chapter or verse. There was no capital letters, lowercase. There was no hyphens, no semicolons, full colons. There was none of that. You get all of that with English. But if you study the Hebrew, it just ran across the script like this. Solomon, yeah. Was he a prophet? Now, I know Daud his father was a prophet. Most of them. I mean, Enoch was a prophet, but we don't have his writings. The only thing we hear about Enoch is in who was it? Jude. Well, yeah, he did write, but there's some speculation if that is the same book that he wrote. There's just some speculations in archaeologists who kind of found some of those scrolls. So that's why the Roman Catholic Church decided it was not canon. But some people believe it's canonical. Yeah. Right. When the King James Version was written, the first edition, actually the first 3 or 4 editions, you had the Apocrypha in it. It wasn't until I think the 4th edition where they took it out, somewhere around there. They decided to take it out. But in the original, and the original was kind of like that Old English. It's kind of hard to follow, that Old English. Even some of the letters, because in that Old English, you see the letter V, but it's actually pronounced like a U, but it looks like a V. So you would see his name, Jesus, and it would be an IESV or IESVS, and that's how it was written. Because the V actually had a U sound. So whenever you see a V being used as a U sound, that's from the Latin language. And in Arizona, you've got the Maricopa County Courthouse. If you just print that out, Maricopa County Courthouse, if you went and looked at it, all the U's are V's. All the U's are V's, because so it's letting you know this is of Latin origin. And then you have kind of like the pillars up there. When you see those columns and those pillars all around our courthouses and everything, you know what that resembles? Rome. It resembles Rome. The pillars, the columns, the V's that are used as a U, all that's Latin. Comes from Rome. So when you look at our courthouses around this nation, and all you see are columns and pillars and V's for U's, you're looking at Rome. You're looking at Rome. We don't see it like that. We see this as the land of the free and home of the brave. It's actually, you're looking at Rome. We're looking at Rome. We don't know it. A lot of our eyes are blinded. We're blinded. And some people don't mind it. I don't care to be blind. I'm having a good time over here in Rome. I hope I'm blind. What are you talking about? Hey, he's waking a lot of folks up, though.
Well, Elder, with those columns, have you ever looked up and saw some of the statues they're mounted?
Oh, I mean, And all of those statues, all of that imagery was forsaken as far as the Hebrew culture is concerned. Because even when you look at this book, and it was given to a Hebrew people and a Hebrew culture, when you take this book and you try to make this book apply to somebody else, then it becomes a religion. And so, but because the Hebrews understood that we don't make imagery, we don't do none of that, because that was against the writings of the book. That's against our covenant. We don't make images and like that. So whenever you see images and molten figures and statues and stuff like that, it's not from the Hebrew culture. So now you're dealing with another culture. You're dealing with another culture. So yeah, there's a lot of statutes and gargoyles and all of that. All that's from Rome. He told us we don't do that. We don't do that. Yes. Oh, yeah. A lot of that came from the father of religion. Is anybody know who the father of religion is? Nimrod. Nimrod. No, well, there was some gods that came over from the flood, and Nimrod was after the flood. But they had some gods that they brought over from the flood. So somewhere in Noah's house, somebody brought some gods from before the flood. But there was not supposed to be any idols. He didn't want, don't make you up no idol. It could be a big idol, it could be a little idol. You know, you can't make no imagery of no. Even Jacob's wife, Rachel, had her father's idols. You know, and she hid them, and she said she was on that time of the month, and she wasn't, because when women had that time of the month, there was a certain seat they were supposed to sit on, which let you know that was their time of month, you know, hands off. And so that's what she said. So there, you couldn't touch them or anything. And that's where she hid. She was deceptive. That's where she hid those idols. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you know. Yeah. And you see that with when they could not keep covenant for 40 days. Because while Musha was gone, they told Aharon to do what? Up, make us a god. And we'll say this is the one that brought us out of Egypt. But with that God, that G-O-D, what was going on in the camp? Sin and what? Somebody said it. Yes. Because the spirits that came out of that, like you were saying, they were in an orgy practice. And that's why Joshua says, oh, I hear, that's the sound of the people. And Musha says, no, that's not what I hear. That you ain't hearing them right, Joshua. You're still wet behind the ears, Joshua. No, that them folks is doing something ungodly down there. Huh? Yeah. But they got caught up because there's spirits that comes with those practices and with those gods. There's spirits that. Yeah. Because I say a lot of the stuff that you see over here comes from Rome. All you gotta do is go. Yeah, I mean that man has always fallen to idolatry, and they've always looked for other gods besides the. He chose Abraham, who was of that seed of Seth, but he chose him because Abraham, he didn't want to be around his own father because of the idols and idol worshiping. He knew his heart, so he told Abram, come on out from them. He had no problem coming out from his father's house. They were all idolaters. It even says they were idolaters. So he chose Abraham, and he says, because you were faithful unto me and you obeyed my word, you know, I'm going to make you a father of many nations. And your seed is going to be blessed, and your seed is going to bless the whole earth. And everybody that blessed them are going to be blessed. Yes.
I just wanted to bring out to today what I learned about yoga. resting and exercising. We're worshiping our God.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dangerous. But you can't still tell people that it's not just exercise. Even if you're on the first level, because there are levels, and that's really dangerous. How it's been incorporated into health and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the school systems are not doing it well.
Yeah. 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 Now, meditation is good if you're meditating on His Word and meditating on the Most High, because that's what King David would do. He said, I meditate on Thy Word day and night. So the practice of meditation, you just want to make sure you're meditating on the right thing, because you can use that practice of meditation for something evil and conjure up, some spirits. So if I'm going to meditate, and I try to make it a daily practice, my meditation. But if I'm meditating on His Word, and it kind of helps me as I study it and I pray and I research it, because I meditate on it. I meditate. The things that I read, I'll just go and I'll just meditate on it. Just kind of let it saturate my mind and marinate. And that's what, when we have Bible classes and teachings and everything, you should meditate on that word. Just go into a meditation. It might take 30 minutes, an hour, just depending on your day and how much time you have, because to me, when you're retired, almost every day is a Sabbath. Right? When you retire, every day is a Sabbath. So he says here in Yahuchanan 5:39, he says, search the scriptures, because that's where we're going to find him. That's where we're going to find him. So where we started today was John, Yahuchanan 14:6. This is where we had finished. I went Yahuchanan 14:6. He says, I am the way. Just like you see with the Shabbat, and why the Shabbat is important to those who are called Christians, because it's something that the first Christians did, and you can build doctrine off of the Shabbat, because in order to build doctrine, you have to have precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. You cannot build doctrine on first day worship. Now, a lot of people will say, they were in Yahuchanan in Revelation said he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. Well, what is his day? He tells us when you go to Isaiah 58 and verse number 13, he tells you what his day is. He says, if thou turn away thy foot from the Shabbat, the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on what? My holy day. So when Yahuchanan in the book of Revelation, where it says, now you won't see this if you're looking at it through the Roman lens, but if you're looking at it through a Hebraic lens, when Yahuchanan says, I was in the Spirit on Yah's day, as a Hebrew, what do you think of? The Sabbath. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. When Yahuchanan said, I was in the Spirit on Yah's day, he was talking about the Shabbat. Because every Israelite, every Hebrew, every Israelite knows that his day is the Shabbat. Yes.
And some of those books that were taken out of the original, especially like the book of Jubilees, it talks about the Shabbat over and over and over. So a lot of people don't know it, because even though it's mentioned in the books that they left, it seems to me, and I could be wrong, that it is mentioned more in the books that they removed. Especially like the book of Jubilees. Every time I come out, it talks about the Shabbat. Remember the Shabbat. And then I would read something else, and it said, remember the Shabbat.
Yeah.
Remember the Shabbat. Keep the Shabbat.
What?
They kept saying it over and over. And I didn't even read every single, because I kind of skim as I read. I didn't even read every single word or verse. But I couldn't tell you how many times it popped up.
Because and that's true. And even reading the prophets, If you read the prophets, just do a word search on how many times Isaiah says Sabbath. Do a word search on how many times Ezekiel says Sabbath. Do a word search on how many times Moses mentioned Sabbath in his writings. I mean, you would be surprised how many times they use the word Sabbath and 0 times they use the first day of the week. So really there's no argument. I mean, if people are set on that, well, then just go. I mean, to me, there's no argument. You have no foundation. You can't use an argument when you have no foundation. You can't go into a court of law with no evidence. Ask Donald Trump and everybody who follow him. That pillow guy is going to go crazy. He's going to need therapeutic help. He's going to need some kind of mental help. The man has gone crazy. You can't go into a court of law. It wouldn't even be worth my time to debate somebody on the first day. I take the position of the Shabbat. They take the position of the first day. That's not even fair. It's not even fair. It's not, because as soon as you go to the scriptures, there's nowhere from Genesis to Malachi that you can build a foundation on the first day of the week. Nowhere.
That explains why the Roman Catholic Church took out those books, because they were controversial. They would contradict the first day of the week doctrine, among other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because what was that? What was that to his people? It was a sign. Thank you. It was a sign on his people. The Shabbat was a sign on his people. Now, people who say, well, he changed it, well, then there's one verse you have to retract or dedact out of your Bible. Anybody know what that verse is? Thank you. Hebrews 13:8. You got to take it out. You got to take, when people say, well, he changed it. He did honor the Shabbat, but he don't honor the Shabbat anymore. It's the first day. Well, then you have to take Hebrews 13:8 out of the book. Just take it out. Because Hebrews 13:8 says Jesus Christ same yesterday, today, and forever. And he says the scriptures testify of me. So it never changes. Never changes. So it's a sign on his people. So the enemy, the adversary, knows that better than his people know it. So he takes it away. And then he uses the ecclesia as a club to beat on the heads of his people. Y'all better watch out now. You better watch out. The adversary uses the ecclesia as a club to beat on the heads of his people. Huh? All right. Now look at this. If I was in a debate with somebody on first day of week and I'm taking the Sabbath, which I don't even think it's a fair fight, I would kind of laugh and say, it's not a fair fight. Give me a fair fight. Give me a fair fight. So they'll go to this verse, and then they'll go to Revelation, when John says he was in the Spirit on Yah's day. Well, that's the Shabbat. The only day he has is Shabbat. And then they'll go to this one, and upon the first. Now notice now, day is in italic, so it's not in the original script. It's not in the original script. So what he's saying is, upon the first of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Shaul preached unto them, ready to depart on tomorrow and continue in his speech until midnight. Now, you have to understand what is going on in this chapter. You have to understand what's going on in this chapter, because we're dealing with a feast. And we sailed away from Philippi after days of unleavened bread, and came unto them to Troas in 5 days, where we abode 7 days. So verse 6 is going to tell you and help you explain verse 7. Okay, because you're dealing with the time of unleavened bread, and then you're dealing with the 5 days, and we abode 7 days. So how do they measure unleavened bread, 5 days, and 7 days? So you go to verse number 7. Now let's go to the Greek text. So I want to go to the Greek text, and I want to look at G 45:21. G 45:21. So I click on that. Anybody that uses first day as the day of worship has no argument. Why? What does that say? Sabbaton. It says Sabbaton. So what he's saying is upon the first Sabbaton, that's when we're going to journey, because they measure all of their days. The unleavened bread is measured by the time of the month, and you have 7 days. Then you have he talks about the 5 days. Then he talks about 7 days before he travels. Then he says on the first Shabbat, that's when he got up and they broke bread and he began to preach. It wasn't day 1 that he got up to preach. Notice now, he says, the Greek calls it Sabbaton, of Hebrew origin, which means what? He was talking about, so if anybody wants to use, anybody in Ecclesia that wants to use Acts chapter 20, verse 7, and try to use that as an argument for day 1, they don't even know that they're talking about the Sabbath. That's why it's not even a fair fight. It's not even a fair fight, because every scripture that they would use, it's like, that's not what he's talking about, the Sabbath. Just look at it in the Greek. He's talking about on the first Sabbath. They came together, and what did they came together and do? They broke bread. They came together on the Sabbath, on Sabbaton, and Sabbaton means the daytime, because you have the Sabbath, which is from evening to evening. Like I said, Sabbath is from evening to evening, but Sabbaton now, you're talking about the daylight of the Sabbath. So when the sun was up to when the sun goes down, that's the Sabbaton. But the Sabbath is from evening to evening. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? Okay. That's they're dealing with the daytime. This was during the day, and he even tells you that he continued in his speech until when? It says right here, he continued in his speech until midnight. So he started when the sun was up. It was Sabbaton. It's Sabbaton. It was the daylight hours of the Sabbath. So the Sabbath in Leviticus 23, it says you celebrate the Sabbath from what? Evening to evening. Now Sabbaton or Sabbaton is dealing with the daylight hours of the Sabbath. See the difference? You see the difference? No? Okay. Okay. The Sabbath. There's a difference between Sabbaton and Sabbath. No. Leviticus, let's look at Leviticus 23 and, is it 23 and 7? Maybe it's 23 and 7. Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23. I'm trying to go through this really fast, but I'm missing something in Leviticus 23, because it says from evening to evening. Can somebody see that in Leviticus 23? 32. That's the one. Leviticus 23:32. It shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and ye shall afflict your souls in the 9th day of the month at even. Notice now, from even unto even shall ye celebrate your Sabbath. So when you say Sabbath or the Shabbat, it's even unto even, or from sundown to sundown, which is a 24-hour day. When you talk about Sabbaton, now you're talking about the daylight of the Sabbath. So is the whole daylight of the Sabbath 24 hours? No. There's only a certain part of the Sabbath that is daylight. And that's what he's dealing with when he says the Sabbaton. We're dealing with the daylight part of Sabbath, because the Sabbath is from sundown to sundown. But from sundown to sundown, is the sundown for 24 hours, sundown to sundown? No. There's a part of the Sabbath that is daylight. And it's those daylight hours that is what he's dealing with. In when we look at Acts 20 and verse 7, we're talking about the daylight hours that he's dealing with. He was up during the day is when he was doing that teaching. So why is that important? Well, when you go to Numbers 15, when was that young man collecting sticks? He was doing it on the Sabbath, but was he doing it? He was doing it during the daytime. He was not doing it at night, because at night, like we're going to experience, when the sun goes down, what else goes down? Light. Light is gone. So they weren't out in the fields where it's not like we have today, all the lights. They were not out in the fields with their oxen. They weren't out there in the fields collecting sticks. If you wanted to build a fire, you better collect your wood and your sticks and everything before the sun goes down. So in Numbers, the 15th chapter, this man was up during Sabbaton, or the daylight hours of the Sabbath, collecting the sticks. He was not collecting the sticks at night. He was collecting them during the day. You guys will get it later. That's all right.
I just looked it up, and it says, what is the difference between the Sabbath and the Sabbaton? It says English-speaking countries, in turn, Sabbaton is often employed to mean an event or a program of education, and is usually a celebration that is held on the Shabbat. Sometimes the Sabbaton is the entire weekend with the main focus of the Shabbat. So it's a double Shabbat. It's like a holiday that falls on the Shabbat. That's a double Shabbat. That's a celebration, holy day that falls on the Shabbat. That's the Sabbaton.
Okay.
I have a broadcast that talks about the Sabbaton.
Celebration, holy day, and the only time the people, when you look at Numbers 15, the man was in trouble, and he lost his life because he was up during daylight hours collecting sticks. He was working. He got up to work. He did not do it at night. So from sundown to sundown, you have the Sabbath, which is a 24-hour day. Sundown to sundown is a 24-hour day. Of that 24 hours, do we have any daylight on that 24 hours? Well, yes, we do. Right. So, okay. Numbers chapter 15.
What's the Strong's definition of Sabbaton?
I don't know. Do you have it?
It says, introduction, 1.2, Hebrew word Sabbaton meaning special Sabbath. Strong 7677, and gives every verse where the Hebrew word Sabbaton.
Sabbaton, and that's Greek. Yeah.
Hebrew word is
Okay, so let's look at Numbers 15 and verse number 32. And while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they found a man that gathered sticks upon the Sabbath day. We're talking about during daylight hours. We're not talking about at night.
But they don't specify that that's a Sabbath time. It does not say Sabbath time.
Well, it was during the daylight of the Sabbath. Okay, take that off there. The fact remained is the guy was collecting sticks during the day of the Sabbath. Now, the Sabbath is a whole day, sundown to sundown, is a whole day. But out of that day, you have some sunlight. So during the day is when he was collecting his sticks. So, and they found him gathering sticks, brought him unto Moshe and Aaron and all the congregation. And they put him in where because it was not declared what should be done to him. So we know, and Yah said unto Moshe, the man shall be surely put to death. All the congregation shall stone him with stones without the camp. And all the congregation brought him without the camp and stoned him with stones, and he died as Yah commanded Moshe. And then after that, you have the tzitzit that was incorporated so that they would put on tzitzit at the end of their garments that had the laws and the statutes. And one of them was, remember the Shabbat to what? Keep it holy. Yes.
I guess I don't, now that you're reading that, 142, I don't know that I remember, and I'm pretty sure it's in the Torah, but where they specify day. I've always, I just remember, well, yeah, they do. Remember the Sabbath day, people open them.
Yeah. Well, Yom day is made up of night and day. Okay? So out of the Shabbat, you have light, or you have the daytime. That's when people would do their work. They didn't work at night. They weren't out there plowing the oxen, cutting down wood, gathering sticks, they did all that work during the day because night would fall. We're not going out to work at night. I have to get everything that I need for the day, or I have to do that during the day. If I need something for night, I have to do it during the day, so I make sure I have it at night. I'm not going out there to work or do anything like that when the sun goes down.
So I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, and I'm trying to process this, so I'm thinking that maybe, okay, so the Shabbat, it's first at sundown, so perhaps that before the Shabbat ended, during that, like, okay, you started like 6, and then if he wakes up, and then during that day, that pocket, right, he was taking the 6 before the Shabbat ended.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying that correctly. Okay.
Right. And he was doing his work while the sun was up, while it was light outside. So they weren't supposed to do that work when the light was up. Should they work at night? No, nobody worked at night. They were not on the 24/7 corporate schedule like we have today. Because a lot of times we can't think of, what do you mean? Everybody works at night. But back in the culture of the people, at night you didn't work. When that sun went down, whatever you didn't do during the day, that's it. I'm done. And so they would wait till the next daylight hours to pick up where they left off and do their work, except on the Shabbat. So when the Shabbat day was there, they didn't do any work on the Shabbat day, daylight hours. Yes.
So, what I'm reading, it says, originally did not say first day of the week. It just said Sabbath home, which people consider to be Sunday. So, could that be to all the days outside of Saturday, Sabbath, Sunday, during the day, Sabbath home, Monday, during the day, Sabbath home, Tuesday, during the day, Sabbath home, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Could that encompass all of those days besides Saturday being specifically called Sabbath? So what I'm reading here, they to them it just generally means week, the day of the week, not so much the first day, because that wasn't originally in there, the first day of the week. Because they said something about, they didn't generally have names for days of the week.
They didn't. I mean,
so Sabbath could technically mean a Monday during the day.
They measured everything. They measured everything by the Shabbat.
Right.
That's how the Hebrews did it. They measured everything by the Shabbat. So when they rested on the Shabbat, they knew the next day or daylight hours was the first day. And then they would count then the second day, then the third day. They would go out. That's how they measured their days of the week. Now, in that Greek writing, we're talking about Shaul and people who would go into the synagogue on the Sabbath, people who were of that culture. Anybody of that culture would know when you're dealing with the Sabbath, you're dealing with the seventh day. They didn't measure, they were not Romans. They were not Greeks. They didn't do things like the Romans or the Greeks. They had their set days and their set calendars on how they did it. So when they talked about the Sabbath day or the Sabbath, now Greek, it said that in the Greek writing, the Sabbaton, then you're dealing with the Sabbath day or the seventh day. You're dealing with the seventh day. Yeah.
What I'm gathering and understanding is that Sabbaton was just a day. Sabbath was specifically given a name, but Sabbaton was just a day. So our Sunday would be Sabbaton. But the reason why the Catholics or whoever changed it is because it says that Jesus, Yahusha, was
Resurrected?
Resurrected.
Uh-huh.
Because the Bible says first day of the week, whoever changed it, that's why they changed it to say that was the Sabbath day, the Roman Catholics or whatever they did, the crazy stuff they did. Because whoever worded it said he was resurrected on the first day of the week, when originally that's not what it said. It just probably said he was resurrected on Sabbaton, which means during the day.
Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't Yom Rishon or Yom Shashi. What we're getting ready to learn and do. I don't know where that came in, but you don't see that. I haven't seen it in the Bible.
Yom Kippur?
No, Yom Rishon, Yom Shashi. Those are the Hebrew days of the week that they go by now. When did that come into play? Because it's not mentioned in here. Because how come the days of the week, if the Most High gave Adam the knowledge to name every single animal and insect and whatever else that was known to him at that time, how come he couldn't tell them the days of the week and give man that knowledge? Well, this day is going to be Yom Rishon. Who invented that? I don't even think that wasn't even in there. So
well, okay.
That's a whole nother.
All right. So, back to. Who else had their hand up? I think Deacon had his hand up too.
No, I just have a question. Okay, layman's term.
Okay.
2 days. Are you going to incorporate that Sabbath to us today? Okay, we have the 24-hour days, which has all been changed. So, what are you trying to get through to us as far as today?
What I wanted to, and probably should have just stayed with Numbers, the 15th chapter. What I wanted to bring out with that is that you have, in a 24-hour period, you have part of the day that is light. You have daylight, a part of the day. And that's when they were restricted of doing any kind of work, building a fire, gathering sticks, laboring. They were restricted from doing that during that day. Somebody might say, well, what about night? If I can't do it during the day, I'll just do it at night because I'll just light everything up with lights. They didn't have that back then. In the culture of the Hebrews, when the sun went down, you were done. Your day was over. That was it. When the sun went down, you rested. You was with your family. You was in your house. You did whatever. But there was no work employed when the sun went down.
You mean servile work or basically cooking?
servile work. Servile work. There was no servile work done when that sun went down until the sun came back up. Now I can go back to work, except if it's on the Sabbath. Now on the Sabbath, on that seventh day when the sun comes up, I'm not going to do any work.
Okay, so like what if they, like you said, they're sitting in a house and something might have happened on Wednesday or something. Oh, they were to look for something. They couldn't light the lanterns.
Oh yeah, they would light the lanterns. They would still do that. They would still look for. See, we can't make it more restrictive or complicated than what it should be. Yeah, and legalistic. That's the time. We can't make it more legalistic. We can't, because Jesus even said, if your donkey is in the ditch and that's your beast of burden and it's the Shabbat, are you going to dig him out of the ditch? And they all said yes. That's what you're going to do. You're going to get him out of the ditch because that's your beast of burden. You know that the next day, when the daylight hours come up, that beast of burden is going to work, because that's your workhorse. That's your economy. That's your wealth. That's your money. That's your job. So when the sun comes back up again, I'm putting him to work. I'm not going to work him on the Sabbath. It's not wrong. That's wrong for me to work him on the Sabbath. But if he's in the ditch or in the pit, I'm going to dig him out. I'm going to bring him out and not violate the Sabbath. Yes.
Well, Elder, I wanted to address Sister Hazel when you were talking about the naming of the days of the week. There's a book out called The Festival of Days, and that book breaks down every day, and it gives it a name. And then I learned Monday. They called named the days and called Monday because of the moon.
Moon, yeah. But that comes from a different culture. Yeah, different time, different culture. You know, the naming of the days and the month that we have now doesn't come from the Hebrew culture. It doesn't. So.
Yeah, that's what she was talking about. Like, what's the origin of the Hebrew naming of the days? Where did that come from?
Right.
They didn't name that. Those were not in the
Saturday was the only day
original
named
Hebrew.
Shabbat. That's it. In the Bible, they didn't
Right,
say
right.
the Sabbath could be in Hebrew on Monday. No. They only gave one name to one day of the week in the Bible, period. They didn't say Yom Rishon, Yom Shishi. Those are the Hebrew names of the week.
Yeah, and they almost sound Yiddish.
So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Who named it that? Because the Bible only specifically gives a name to one day of the week, and that was the seventh day.
The seventh day, right. And I just don't want us to get caught up into what the scribes and the Pharisees, what they got caught up in, and what the Talmud, because the Talmud makes it more legalistic, and they get caught up in all this other stuff. That's not how it was when he gave them the Sabbath. It was that you just don't go to work on the Sabbath. And since you're not at working, so what they did was they would go into the temple or into the house, and they would learn. They would learn because they weren't out in the fields working. They weren't working, so they would go together and learn. He said, if you guys rest on this day and you use this day as my holy day that I separated for you, that's going to be a sign upon you that the whole world can see I gave it to you and you're my people. So it was a sign upon them. But we can't make it more legalistic or make it more complicated than what it is. We shouldn't do that. You know, that's not the purpose. Because they try to get him and say, you're a Sabbath breaker.
For eating some corn.
Yeah, I mean, and plus his men were in the field and they plucked the corn off because they was hungry. And he says, you broke the Sabbath. He had to straighten them out to let them know. He didn't break the Sabbath because they broke some ears of the corn off and ate the corn in the field. That's not breaking the Sabbath.
They said they rubbed the kernels of corn, so that was a type of harvesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made it rough, didn't they?
Yeah, and because some people will try to make it so real, so legalistic to try to bind you.
That's
you know,
true.
they'll tell us, well, why do you get in your car and go to church? You shouldn't do anything. That's not breaking the Sabbath. Because I get in my car, you start your car up, you're working. No, I'm not working. My work was when I went on my job and I got paid for doing my job, my servile work. That's working. Starting my car up and driving to church is not working. That's not working. You know. So
it does say don't let your maids work, your handmaids, and during that time.
Right.
So, like, do we not go out to several venues or places because that's, in so many words, making them work for you? I mean, is
Now,
that legalistic?
in his house, in the Hebrew culture, now there was other nations around him. They did whatever they wanted to do. They did what they ever wanted to do. He says, my people aren't going to do that. So you might have other nations, other people, other cultures. They're doing all kind of things on that day. Well, I can't stop that. I have no control over that.
No, I wasn't saying that. I was talking about, he said no one works, not your maids, not
Within your house.
in your house.
In your house.
Okay.
But
in your house.
is she trying to say, Sister Keller, are you trying to say, should we be going to a restaurant on Sabbath?
Yeah.
Not supposed to be
Shopping, going to,
right.
that's not the same as saying in my house. My servants. If
Yeah.
I have a maid to come and clean up.
But we don't have servants.
Yeah,
Slavery is
yeah.
out
If
there.
you have
No, if you have a housekeeper, some people
Well,
do.
yeah, some well-off people.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a housekeeper or something, you tell them, hey, you don't do this on the Sabbath.
Okay.
Just don't do it.
But
This
I
is
mean,
a day
should
you
we go
rest.
to a restaurant, bottom line?
I mean, I wouldn't, because I don't want to buy or sell on that day.
That's one thing. And so what
Yeah.
about the people that are serving you,
Right.
working? They're going to work, like you said, they're outside of us.
Right,
Maybe
right,
they're not Sabbath keepers,
Right.
but
If we're not in your
should we have them working? Because if we're being served at a restaurant, they are working for us, whether we own them or not.
Well, just don't go purchase at a restaurant.
Well, that's buy or sell
Okay.
is one.
Let
You're
me,
buying the food, you have to buy the food, but you have to be served the food also.
Well,
yeah,
then
because
don't go
the
out
Sabbath
to eat.
day was supposed to be a day where you actually, I mean, you get into study, you get into teaching. In the book, the only time they sat in Moses' seat was on the Sabbath. They didn't sit in Moshe's seat the first day, second day, third. They only did it on the Shabbat. So that's when they would go and listen to the teachings of Moses.
But that's in the camp. But
Yeah, that's within Israel. So Israel wasn't a part of all these other cultures doing all these other things because,
but we're 2021 though.
yeah.
So Moses, you can't even do Uber or
Well, like right now, what I'm doing now, reading. I'm sitting in Moses' seat, Musha's seat, and what that is just a place where he taught the people. That's what he did. He taught the people, and the Mashiach says they sit in Moshe's seat. He says, "Do as they say, but don't do as they do." The only time they taught the people was on the Shabbat. That's when they taught the people. We see that in the book of Acts. We already covered some of those scriptures. From Sabbath to Sabbath, that's when he went into the synagogue to teach the people. They didn't do it any other day of the week. They just did it on the Shabbat. They went into the synagogue to teach. They did that not only in Jerusalem, but all outside of Jerusalem. The first Christian, that's the only time that they did it. So they weren't out, clubbing, malls, they weren't out doing that because the only time that they could hear the teaching was on the Sabbath. And it was just their custom to hear Moshe's teaching on the Sabbath. Okay, I got two hands up here. Deacon.
I know a guy, he was Jewish, he was of the Jewish culture, and he said, well, I asked him about Sabbath, and he said, what they would do was they considered it a sin to even turn on a light switch or whatever. So what they would do is have servants who were not of the,
You turned the light on. I mean, we could get.
He was saying earlier, even if it's in your household, but they had slaves that were of the Jewish customs,
Yeah, but it was basically it's a day where you don't do the servile work or the things that you did before, and it was a time they would go and hear Moshe's teaching, and they would hear. Okay, brother, huh? No, he's had his hand up for a while. No, yeah.
Certain things that people have to keep in perspective because there was certain things that people fell up under. Like if someone got sick, if someone was ill, they had to have someone to wait on. So that wasn't considered as work. So at that point, people are just overlooking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because they try to indict Jesus because he raised somebody from the dead on the Sabbath. He healed somebody on the Sabbath. And they say, you ain't supposed to be working. What are you talking about? Healing somebody on the Sabbath is not working. You know, when you understand what the Sabbath day was meant for.
But check this out. My oven has a Sabbath day button. You push that button, my oven will stay on for the full Sabbath. So technically, you're not kindling a fire.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Well,
Right.
that's another thing they
Right.
say. If you
Because-
turn the microwave, why can't you turn on the stove?
Right. Because, I mean,
So
we
my
can't.
stove don't have fire. It got oil.
We can't get legalistic with it to where you can't tie your shoe. Then it's going to be like you can't shower. Well, I can't even go to the bathroom on the Sabbath. That means I got to hold it for 24 hours because that's working. We can't do that. No.
It's too much.
No.
Okay, Vicar. The Shabbats that have a Sabbath on, there's a difference. There's certain holy days that fall on the Shabbat that you can cook. That's what I'm getting mixed up.
Okay.
So the Sabbaton falls on the Shabbat. Those days, holy days, you can cook, but all the other Shabbats you're not supposed to cook. That's why we are given the preparation day, which is Friday, to prepare the meal for Friday night and Saturday.
Right. And because you
Sabbathon, you can cook for those holy days that fall on them.
Yeah. So and I mean that's good experience. But what I wanted to bring out was that the work that this young man was doing was not allowed on the Sabbath.
Right.
Not because when you say Sabbath, you think of 24 hours. No, we're talking about because he wasn't out there at night. He was out there during the day.
Yeah, nobody.
You know, so nobody works. You just don't do it the day. Nobody works at night. You just don't do it during the day. But we can't make it so legalistic and make it so drawn out to where you just, you know, that's not how. And that's why Christ had to set it in order.
But don't the land have a Sabbathon too? That every 7 years it's supposed to rest for that whole year.
Yeah. Right. And even when they went into the land, he told them, I don't want you to eat none of the fruit and stuff off the trees with those people was in there. Plant your own vineyard. Give it the first harvest. Don't eat the first harvest. Give it a second harvest. I mean, so they had to have enough built up to last for, you know, a little while, you know, and eat something else besides what was coming off of the vegetation. So, I mean, he had certain rules and regulations that he set in order. But mainly that was people in the land. Yes.
To bring this to enlighten us is Nehemiah.
Yeah.
He was talking about the folks coming up in here, you're gonna try to keep selling and keep doing your thing. So basically that answers a lot of my questions.
Yeah, because they weren't supposed to do it on the Sabbath.
Yeah,
You're not supposed to do it on the Sabbath.
lay my hands on you.
Yeah, that's
I'm back
Nehemiah.
here again.
Nehemiah.
I'm gonna put my hands on
That's
you.
what Nehemiah said.
Yeah.
He said, if I come back here the next Sabbath and you're out here, I'm going to lay my hands on
Lay
you.
my hands.
He was real, yeah.
Right.
So that wasn't servile work though. They were merchants
But that
selling product to Israel.
But
That is
Israel was
work.
buying and selling. You ain't supposed to buy and sell on the Sabbath either.
That is work.
You're
Yeah.
not supposed to go to the grocery store.
For Israel, they were causing Israel to sin. He told them, you got to get out of here because it's a holy day. So it's a day that is set apart, that is sanctified. It's a day where you're supposed to hear the word. You know, Israel was very productive, industrial people. They had a lot. I mean, but he says now on this day now, out of all your busy schedules, everything that you're doing, on this day, I want you to come into my house and hear my word. Because a lot of them had to take what they heard on the Shabbat and teach their sons. Because they didn't have the printing press. They didn't have, you could walk into any store and get the book. You know, you just didn't have it like that. It was not like that. There might have been 1 or 2 scrolls of Moshe's teaching. And they had it in the temple. And they would read out of that. And so what they heard, that's why they had a court for the men. There were some courts the women couldn't even go into. It was the men's responsibility to get that word from Moshe's seat and take it home and teach it to your sons. That was their responsibility. So they would only get that on the Shabbat. Yes.
And even though I'm not being legalistic, I still think that we have to be careful because of the fact we have a lot of modern day conveniences that they didn't have, that we have to be careful that we don't twist it to make it fit us because we have modern day conveniences that we're taking it a little too lightly. I'm not saying being legalistic, but we have to be careful that we, don't cross that fine line, and then we make all these excuses as well, just because our day is different from their day. Because it says over and over, do no work, and I know if somebody gets sick, of course, if you have, like my grandson is running a fever at 2:00 in the morning, of course I'm going to attend to him. I'm not going to let him just shake and have convulsions.
No, you don't.
But what I'm saying is, we have to make sure we're not making a lot of modern day conveniences because this is 2021 and we have a lot of what they didn't have to make it easier. Our Shabbat now is easy peasy when I say compared to how they had it. So we can give up a lot of stuff for during the Shabbat time from Friday 6 to Saturday 6 because they had it much worse than we had it. So I mean, if I don't go to a restaurant or to the store and spend money, okay, that's nothing.
Just one day out of the week.
I mean, or if I don't cook, grilled burgers on the okay,
it's just one day out of the week.
If I have 6 baskets of clothes, as soon as 6:01 happens, boom, I can throw those clothes in the washing machine. So I mean, we can give up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm surprised with this man that gathered these sticks. They should have known what his penalty was. Why they had to draw him and then go ask God what should be his punishment.
Yeah.
And then you said, then he put the tassels or whatever.
The seats on, right.
On them. But they had got so far away, they didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah, see, they didn't have anything written like what we have now. They didn't have that. We experienced a printing press. You can go, even now, every computer you can get the word. I mean, so he wanted a reminder to them since everybody didn't have it. Even at the time he was collecting sticks, Moshe probably hadn't written everything.
Okay.
So they put, okay, let's put the 10 Commandments, because a lot of people say on the seat is the 10 Commandments. Is the 10 Commandments. So, yes.
I wanted to bring up what you were saying, brother, about nursing. My daughter is a nurse. We've been Adventists for a long time, where we keep Sabbath for many, many years. And what the Seventh-day Adventists did, those who were licensed nurses and doctors and stuff, they would still go to work on their shift, but they gave the money that they earned on that Sabbath to the church. That's what they did.
At 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's what they did, but I'm like you said, when people are sick at the hospital, I was just telling Sister Kelly, we can't just close the hospital down and leave the sick people alone. So people still have to work, but everybody is not trying to keep the Sabbath. But the point is, the ones who are trying to keep the Sabbath, what do you do? Because it is work. Whether it's good work or whatever you want to call it, it's still work. You're earning money, everything. It's your livelihood.
I mean, it is. It's your livelihood. And when I was awakened, I went to the Most High. I repented. I did a lot of things. I prayed unto Him. I cried. I made a vow. I mean,
I'm a nurse. I changed my schedule.
Some people. I mean, I couldn't. When I was employed, I couldn't have that time off when I was employed. Now, do I neglect my family? Because in the Bible it says, he that doesn't care for his family is worse than an infidel, and he's denied what? He denied the faith.
But he also said, do not work on the Sabbath.
Yeah, but so I have to understand where I'm at, and the fact that I went to my employer, and I know I already shared this with everybody, but I had gone to my employer and stated, everything. And they said they would honor it if I could have somebody who would cover for me. They said, we don't mind you having it off. Just you have to provide cover. But I couldn't find anybody who wanted to work their Saturday and then work my Shabbat. That means they would be in there every Saturday. And they said, we ain't working no. So I had to work. No, I don't work. No.
So the Most High worked it out for you?
Yeah.
Because I have an
Yeah.
employment story with my husband. He started a great job at Chrysler.
I retired.
He was told as a young man, just got back from the Vietnam War. Well, it's your Sabbath. He was trying to leave on Friday for the Sabbath. He said, a Sabbath. They said, if you don't work this Friday evening, don't come back on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened? The church helped him though, because it's against the Constitution. That was his religion that he wanted to practice, so they could not fire him.
Right. Now, we do have constitutional protection. All of us do.
Yeah,
We have constitutional protection, not only on the Shabbat, but on other things. Yeah.
But that helped him with that job.
Yeah. We have constitutional protection. I don't want to go down that road. I was going to say something. I don't want to go down the road. But we have certain constitutional protections that we're protected. So they might take away the job at first, but when they get into a court of law and you got that constitutional protection, they'll have to pay you back all those wages you lost and give you your job back.
There's a story right now where coaches were fired because they made a young man eat some pork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because against their religious right. The Constitution protects this day for us. The Constitution does, because you cannot discriminate against us because of our religious belief. You can't. That's a constitutional law. So a lot of employers and stuff, they still try to do it. And yes.
No, I was going to say, and I know everybody does the job, don't have that option, but my job, it says it in there. If you have a religious observance, they have to give it to you off.
Mm-hmm.
Just like they can deny your PTO, but if you put on there, like I put on there, Feast of Tents, one of my holy days, they have to give it off to me.
Yeah, because they cannot. They cannot. We're constitutionally protected, but a lot of times we don't want to do it. We don't have knowledge. Mm-hmm. You're bound by that contract. I mean, you can go in there with your constitutional rights and see, but if they bring out this contract and say, hey, no, you signed this contract, then you're bound by that contract. You're bound by that contract, until you get out of that contract.
I think he could have went to a higher up instead of going to your supervisor. You could have went to the organization chairhead of the company and said, hey, I understand when I first started this job, I didn't care about the Sabbath, but now that I found the truth, I honor the Sabbath. I don't want to work. They would have.
Yeah.
But you was good. You did what you did.
Yeah, you're protected. I would just say that you're protected if that's what you want to choose to do. But I mean, on the days that you can honor the Sabbath, then you should honor it. This notion that you don't have to keep the Sabbath to be saved. I don't walk down that path. I don't. I mean, I used to, but I don't anymore. And the reason why I did was it came from my teachers. And we are all products of our teachers until he gives you a revelation. Because that's what happened to me. I was a product of my teaching, all my teachers all these years, until he enlightened me. And when he enlightened me, it's not nothing new. It was something that he had given thousands and thousands of years. We have so much history and so much scripture to support us. Anybody who tries not to support it really don't have anything to stand on. If you look at the scriptures in the order and in the way that he gives it to you. There's another scripture that I don't want to spend a lot of time on here, but there's another scripture that they bring out, and that's Colossians 2:16. Colossians 2:16. And this is, they usually bring out Revelations chapter 1, when Yahuchanan said he was in the Spirit on Yah's day. They bring out Acts 20:7, which is not dealing with it's dealing with the first Sabbath. And then Colossians 2:16, they use this scripture and says, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath. And they try to twist this to say, see there, you don't have to keep that. And that's not what Paul's dealing with. Paul is talking to a Gentile people who were Gentiles that were not accustomed to the customary practices of the Hebrews. And so if you lived all your life never knowing about the Hebrew calendar, never knowing about the Shabbat, never knowing about the dietary laws, never knowing none of that. And then all of a sudden you change and you say, wait a minute, I want to keep the dietary laws. Wait a minute, I want to follow the Hebrew calendar. Wait a minute, I want to keep the Sabbath. What Paul is saying is, don't let nobody judge you in doing those things. That's what he's saying. So nobody should judge me if I change my diet. The Colossians were Gentiles now. They were not Hebrew descent or of the Hebrew culture. They were Gentiles. So all of a sudden, he's teaching customs to a Gentile people. Don't you know there's a lot of people got pressure on them? Don't you know there's pressure on a lot of us because of this teaching? There's a lot of pressure on us. You don't have to, you got a lot of folks telling people, you don't have to do that to be saved. So what Paul is saying, don't let nobody judge you. If you change your diet and you start keeping these dietary laws, don't let nobody judge you on that. You got to back up. Back up. Get off me. You can't judge me if I keep the dietary law. You cannot judge me if I follow the Hebrew calendar. You cannot judge me if I keep the Sabbath. Get your judgmental hands off me. That's what he's talking about. Because he's talking about a Gentile people. Now, if they start telling you, man, you keeping this out. Well, let's go to Acts. Acts chapter 16. Acts chapter 16 and verse number 20. Acts 16 and 20. And brought to them the magistrates, saying, these men, being Jews or Yahudim, do exceedingly trouble our city and teach customs which are not lawful for us to receive nor to observe. Why? We're Romans. So these were Romans throwing an accusation at Paul and Silas because Paul and Silas was in their city teaching customs. I wonder whose customs they was teaching. Because he says, we're Romans. We don't have to observe that. We don't have to observe that. That's why Paul was telling the Colossians, don't let nobody judge you. And he even says in that next verse, he says, because that is a sign of things to come. If you read Colossians 2:17, he says it's a sign of things to come. He says, which are a shadow of things to come. He warned you, it's coming. You're going to be judged because you're keeping the Hebrew dietary laws. They're going to judge you. You're going to be judged because you follow the Hebrew calendar. You're going to be judged because you keep the Sabbath. He says that's coming. It's coming. And is it here today? Oh, it's been here a long time. It's been here a long time. But the enemy knows how to beguile you and make you use that scripture, Colossians 2:16, and use it to support a doctrine that they can't support in scripture. Because there's no teacher, preacher, pastor, shepherd, elder, district elder, suffragan bishop, cardinal, you name them. None of them can support first day worship off the scriptures. Yeah, I mean, none of them can. Really, it's not even an argument. I mean, really, you ought to just laugh at them and say, you really don't have an argument. You don't have a leg to stand on, really. I mean, we can talk about it if you want, but you can bring me all of your scriptures from Genesis to Malachi. Bring me all of your scriptures that supports first day worship, and I'll bring you all of my scriptures that supports the Sabbath. And then we'll see who wins.
They changed the day. They admitted to changing the day. And when they were asked, well, who told you to change the day? They said Christ told me to change the day.
Yeah, that's
the vicegerent of Christ.
the vicar of Christ. They say the Pope is the vicar of Christ. But if you see the change comes, and anybody can look it up. The change comes. All you got to do is Google March 7th, 321 AD. That's all you got to do, and it tells you who changed it. The Roman Emperor Constantine. So I am the way in Saint in Yahuchanan 14:6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto Abba, but by me. So the way, if the Mashiach is saying he's the way, where do we validate that? Now I know on this side of the resurrection, we don't even have to, well, I know he's the way, he's the truth, but using scripture, where do we validate I am the way? And why is that important? Because you go to, anybody got an answer? That's a question. Why is that important to validate that he is the way?
And also, it was called the way before they were called the way.
That's right.
But
That's somebody who's, where did you get that from? Because that,
it's in here, but I just,
yeah,
I
they,
don't know what verse it is, but I remember reading that.
it was called the way. The road of salvation was called the way. It was called the way. Before, they were called people of the way before Acts 11:26, when they were called Christians. No, I have to find it. It's in there, but you might have to go into the Greek text to see it, because you might not see it in the English text. So you might have to go into concordance and lexicons and look it up. Yeah, we probably read it in English and didn't know that we was reading, they were called people of the way. Okay. When he says, I am the way, he's saying, I am the way. The reason why we need to validate that way is because Matthew 24:24. And we should be more forceful with this today than any time before. Why? Because we're coming to the end of the age. We're coming to the end of the eon. In the English Bible, it calls eon the end of the world. But in the Greek, it says eon, and eon means an age. It's the end of an age.
Can I share something with the group? This vaccine and everything is getting so serious that my daughter lives in Atlanta. She was saying the whole school system is requiring all the teachers and everybody at the school, they have to get vaccinated first. And back with Sandy Hook and Columbine, all those tragedies at the schools, there was a law incorporated then that in case of emergency, they can take our children to safety. But all this was set up for now. You see what I'm saying? We're going, like you said, the end.
Yeah.
They've been making steps.
Yeah.
That law is there. A lot of parents don't even know that.
Yeah.
So this is considered a state of emergency, all this COVID and stuff.
Yeah.
Keep them at home.
All of our children, if you notice on the birth certificate of our children, they're actually warded to the state. All the birth certificates of our children is warded to the state. We don't.
It's to a bank that owns
We don't stop to realize these things because we don't deem them as being very important to us. Yeah. Yeah.
We were slaves. We were the first product of the stock market, and a lot of our people don't know that.
Yeah. And one way that they ward you to the state is that they always ask for, they want to know if you're married. When you have kids, are you married? And then on the birth, if you are married, on the birth certificate, it gives the name of the mother, her maiden name. And then it gives the name of the father. And you'll see that on the birth certificate. Well, they say anybody that's born outside of the institute of marriage, or the institute of marriage is not recognized, then that child, and this is under the United States code, that child is warded to the state.
Oh yeah, Landis is the ward of the state.
Yeah, ward to the state.
He did the Social Security check because his father died in 2019. The father is the state. That's
Yeah.
what they said. So they're giving me a stipend to help raise him because his father.
And so as a ward of the state, if they if they feel you're not doing your job, and that's in their eyes, you could be doing everything you can to raise them, keep them healthy, buy for them clothes, you shelter them, clothe them, teach them, they're healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally. But if they deem that he's not taken care of or she's not taken care of, they can take your child. On what grounds? You might say, on what grounds? Well, you're not taking care of his health because we think all these children should be vaccinated.
Oh, they're doing it.
So they'll take your child
They'll do it.
and vaccinate.
They're doing it in schools now without the parents.
Yeah, and you can't. There's nothing because so this is the systematic beast that we're under. We're under a beast system and don't realize it. I mean, I realize it. Maybe there's some of us who realize it, but we're under a beast system. Beast, B-E-A-S-T.
They told her, they just stuck something in my grandson. She doesn't even know what it was. I was asking her, find out what did they say they have to have this shot. They already have shots, so what is this shot? And she said they told her, well, they need this shot to stay in school, and you can't even do it virtually because we're shutting the stuff down at home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very upsetting to her. And yeah. Well, they told my daughter in Atlanta, your boys have to get this shot. They're a year apart, they're 13 and 14. And
Meningitis,
okay.
Jayla had to get one, but
Really?
she ain't going to school.
Oh, yeah. But
They've been giving out immunizations to you all
all of us have had them.
babies.
But this stuff, this COVID stuff, though, it's not a vaccine. But they're calling it a vaccine because, like you said, we're so used to that word. But it's not a vaccine. There's something much worse that's going into our system. But they did threaten my daughter, and she was afraid, and she just went along with it. And then she said they had a social worker at school talk to her to make sure she complied. Not to give her an option, but to, like, you need to do this because the next step, we would take the boys out the home. That's scary to
no,
a
not
parent.
necessarily. They won't let them come to the school. They can't come to school without that vaccine because they told me that I got a 12-year-old
But
in
also
there.
the virtual at home, cut it off.
I wish
That's
they
what
would.
they told her.
Because my kids are not around other children, so I don't care about that.
Yeah, they told her.
And I mean,
cut it down at home.
some people aren't doing the virtual thing either. So,
She needs help.
but I mean, we recognize the day and time that we're living in, and that these are high times, like what Paul said in Romans 13. These are high times that we awake out of sleep.
Yeah.
Because, and when he tells us we got to wake out of sleep, what does he say that's drawn near? The end. Our redemption is about to happen. We are getting very close to the redemption. That time of redemption, because he's not going to let all of his people fall prey to that beast.
Yes.
He's not. How is he going to prevent all of us from falling to that beast? I mean, we're trying to hold on as much as we can.
He said he would shorten the days.
He's gonna shorten those days, right?
Or no one would be left.
Okay, so okay, false Christ. We gotta remember the way, because there's gonna be false Christ out there. Yes.
Almost got what I was saying. But, gosh. Okay, when it tells you to, in the lessons, I think me and Kelly was talking about that, about you have to run, when it says time to run. Mm-hmm. Where are we supposed to run to?
Yeah, where are we going?
That's why we need each other. Yeah, we need each other.
The wilderness. We
With
have
each
no
other.
wilderness in the Quad Cities.
We got Scott County Park.
So let's try to pull out some of these scriptures, and maybe somebody else has got some scriptures. But first, I want to go to Proverbs 14 and 26, and it says, "In the fear of Yah is strong confidence." In the fear of Yah is strong confidence. And what does his children have? And his children shall have a place of refuge. So there is a place of refuge for us. Now, a lot of people now, because you remember now, there's false Christ prophets and everything. A lot of people will tell you that this place of refuge is in ecclesia. But we have to be careful when we look at that place of refuge as ecclesia, because in ecclesia, what we call ecclesia and the church really doesn't follow. Most churches don't even follow the way. Most of them don't even follow the way, huh?
Well, we are the church.
Right.
So, I mean, but the place of refuge, wouldn't that be us? I mean,
He's going to have a place of refuge for his people. Okay, he's going to gather his people. Now, from what I'm seeing and trying to verify it in scripture and everything, but what I'm seeing is he's going to protect his people. He's going to have a place of refuge for his people, before this whole world falls apart. Because we're going to witness the man of sin when he stands up. We're going to witness that. We're going to be here. We're going to see that. Yes.
So, the place of refuge, is it a physical place, or is it how do you say that, spiritual actions that cause us to have that refuge?
Okay, let's see if we can get the scriptures to answer it. Ezekiel chapter 20. Ezekiel chapter 20. Ezekiel chapter 20. Okay. Start with verse number 33. And let's see if we can answer this with scripture. Now, I've got some things going on in my mind, but it has to be supported by scripture. Because I can say one thing, this is my hypothesis, or I've got some spiritual license. Because I've heard that in the past. I got spiritual license, and I think this is what it is. And I'd rather scripture speak, because if you don't like it, or if you argue against it, then you're not coming against me. You're not coming against my hypothesis. You're not coming against my spiritual license. If I can read the scriptures and you don't like it, then you're coming against the scriptures. Not me. I'm free. So he says in Ezekiel 20 and verse 33, as I live, saith the Don Yahuwah, that's actually what it says. L-O-R-D is more of Adon, or Adon. Some say Adonai, but it's Adon. Yahuwah, surely with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with pure fury poured out will I rule over you. So there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be offended by his rule, because he even said that he's going to establish an everlasting government. What do you mean by that? Because in Isaiah 9 and 7, he says, of his government and peace there'll be what? No end. Of his government ain't going to be no end. So he says, with fury poured out will I rule over you. Now, some of this language and how he says it could be somewhat offensive to people, because people don't want to look at it in those terms, that I'm taking a strong rule over you. You know what they call it? What we used to call it? He is going to be a benevolent dictator. That's how we used to call it. He's going to be the benevolent dictator, because he says, I'm ruling over all of you. I'm ruling. My government is going to rule. All of y'all who is against my law, watch what happens. And I will bring you out from the people and will gather you out of the countries wherein ye are scattered, with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out. Now, we want to be inside that place of refuge. We don't want to be on the opposite side of his fury, because those on the opposite side of his fury, now they're going to experience his judgment, his wrath, and his judgment, which is coming. We see a precursor of it. Ask Italy and Greece what's going on. And fire. And Italy is calling that heat dome that's over them and that fire that's burning up, you know what they're calling it? Lucifer. Yeah, Italy's calling it Lucifer. You can look it up, it's there. They're calling that heat dome and all that fire and the flood, because in places of Italy, there's floods. Their cities are flooded out. Then in other places where it's not concrete and it's land, it's on fire. Yeah, Haiti had a 7.2. Seven. The Yellowstone. Mm-hmm.
They're saying that they had a thing where they can take a microphone and it's screaming. It's screaming.
Well, they said it's gonna blow. We just don't know when. We don't know when. No, in Yellowstone National Park. So he says, with fury poured out, and then he says, I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will I plead with you face to face. He's going to plead with them face to face. Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, saith the Adon Yahuwah. And I will cause you, now here's the thing. I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. Because you have a lot of people who are still broken from the covenant. They're not under the covenant. Now, he's talking about Israel here, but when you look at Israel, in Romans the 11th chapter, who is Israel in the Romans the 11th chapter? Romans the 11th chapter, huh? Yeah. So that's going to be considered. Now, who's in Israel? Because notice now, the Romans the 11th chapter is dealing with those who are what? Converted or what? Adopted or grafted in. So he's going to deal with all of those. He's dealing with Israel, and he's dealing with everybody that's grafted in. Now, if you ain't grafted in, you're going to face his fury. Because everybody that, when he pulls out Israel, and he says, I'm gathering you from the four corners, in Deuteronomy chapter 30, we don't have to go to all these verses, but Deuteronomy chapter 30, he talks about how he's going to gather his people from everywhere where they're scattered. He says from the four corners, from one end of heaven to the other end of heaven. Now, who also said that? Jesus Christ said that. He said, I'm going to gather you from one end of heaven to the other. From the four corners of the earth, I'm going to gather you. That's what the Mashiach said. That's what Moshe said. Also, the prophets have said the same thing. There's going to be a great gathering of his people. Those who are Israel and those who are grafted into Israel. He's going to gather them. This is the place of refuge. When he says, I've got a place of refuge for my children, if you're not in Israel, you have no refuge. There's no refuge. Now, I know some people say, I don't want to be in Israel. I want to be in the ecclesia. But if you understand what the ecclesia is, the ecclesia are those who are grafted into Israel. They're the ones who are grafted into Israel. Because he made no covenant with the Gentiles. Ephesians chapter 2 and verse number 11. Ephesians 2 and 11. Wherefore remember that ye being in times past Gentiles in the flesh, they're not Israel, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called circumcision in the flesh, made by hands. The ones who were circumcised in the flesh as an everlasting covenant was Abraham and his sons. That was the covenant in the flesh. They're called the circumcision. Gentiles are called uncircumcision. But notice what he says, that at that time ye were without the Mashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth of Yasharal. Gentiles. He's talking about Gentiles. He says Gentiles were aliens from the commonwealth of Yasharal, strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope. Oh, okay. I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll now. Having no hope and without Elohim in the world. Is there any debate on who he's talking about here? Any debate? He's talking about Gentiles that are outside of the covenant of promise, aliens from the commonwealth, strangers. He says, but now in the Mashiach, ye who sometimes were afar off are made nigh by the blood of the Mashiach, which we're going to build up to, because that blood now has become an everlasting covenant. And we see that in Hebrews 13:20, but we're not there yet. But he's made you nigh by the blood of the Mashiach, okay? So you go to Romans 11 chapter, and it says that the Gentiles were grafted into Yasharal, into Israel. That's where they were grafted into Yasharal. Now, let's go to, maybe, is my pencil dead? Maybe it's dead. Romans 11. Okay, we got a commercial break coming up. We got a commercial break coming up. Romans 11:25. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Yasharal until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. Come into where? Into Yasharal. They come, okay, go ahead and get set up. We're going to have a commercial break here. They get grafted into Israel. When they get grafted into Israel, that's when you become commonwealth. You get the promises. You get the adoption. You get everything that the fatness of the olive tree, all of that is given unto the Gentiles because they're grafted into Israel. They're grafted into Israel. But in order to be grafted into Israel, first you got to be ecclesia. You have to be called out from all these other nations, all these people. You got to be called out from them, and he grafts you into Israel. And then he says in verse 26, and so all Israel shall be saved. So if you're not in Israel, if you haven't been called out of the heathen nations, ecclesia, if you haven't been called out and grafted into Israel, then there's no salvation for you. But the only way you can do that now, your access into Israel is through what? The blood. The blood of that everlasting covenant that's spoken of in Hebrews 13:20. That blood now is what grafts strangers and Gentiles, uncircumcision, into Israel. So does Israel have to be saved? Yeah. Israel has to be saved too. Israel, notice now, oh man, we're going to have a commercial break here. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 30 and, Jeremiah 16. Jeremiah 16 and verse 16. Behold, I will send for many fishers, saith Yahuwah, and they shall fish them. What was Yahusha making of his disciples? And what did he tell his disciples? Go to the lost sheep of the... I'm sending you fishermen to go to the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal. And after I will send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill out of the holes of the rocks. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Oh.
It ain't gonna be long, but I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Because we have to get down to the rest of this because it deals with Yasharal and it deals with Gentiles. And that's how Paul was able to build his doctrine to the Romans and to the Ephesians. It's right in here. And then we want to get to Ezekiel, the 20th chapter, where he says, okay, I got to bring you all out now. Remember the parable? He says he had his net and he threw the net into the water and he gathered all kinds and he brought them to shore. Once he brought them to shore, what did he do? He started picking them. And we'll see that in Ezekiel chapter 20. We'll see that. After he gathers all of his people and he brings them, he says, I'm going to deal with you face to face. But if you keep reading there, he starts to deal with some of those who did not want to be under the bond of the covenant. Got to get rid of them. Got to get rid of them. Yep. Rebels and something else now. Rebels and those who transgress. Those are the ones he says, I can't have you. I got to get rid of you. And that's out of all the people that he had gathered in. So you have some people, because you got some people now, they're not going to make the gathering. Because if you're not in the way, I mean, we have to start understanding some strong teaching and strong words because it's high time we wake out of sleep. Ain't no time for playing. If you're not in the way, because Jesus said, I am the way. If you're not in that way, you ain't going to be gathered. You're not going to be gathered. So you'll have some who don't make that gathering and they have to go through that. It ain't no 7 years. They have to go through 3.5 years of peril and tribulation, all of that. How are you going to make it? If you're not gathered and you're left to go through the tribulation, how are you going to make it? Oh, there's a way. There's a way. That's right. That's right. Those who are in that gathering are going to be protected. It's a place of refuge. They don't have to deal with all that. It's the ones who don't make that gathering. So it's going to come down to, are you going to be marked? Are you going to give up your head? But that's not going to be for those who are gathered. Yes.
Even if you do give up your head, whatever, get cut off, whatever. But does that necessarily mean, because that's not your judgment, you still got to face judgment. They still have, in Revelations, they're going to be a part of the Mashiach, because they had their heads cut off. Yeah, right. So they'll be a part of it. But yeah, they still have to. They still got to face judgment. Yeah. After because they have a short period that they reign with him. They don't reign with him forever. Yeah, they don't reign forever. And then they have to be, and then they're going to be judged. But they do have some glory because they gave up their head. Yeah. 1,000 years is 1,000 years now. You still get your judgment based on your day. But you're going to tell me somebody who sinned and knew the truth, but decided not to do the truth, go through tribulation, give up their head, and that they're going to make it to the kingdom? Well, I mean, even when they reign with him for that 1,000-year period now, and I think a lot of that stuff is starting to come. I mean, I don't think we realize how. I don't think it's going to happen the way I was raised from my former teachers, and I don't think it's going to end that way. But I don't think that we realize how close it is. Because it is, because this beast, BEAST system, wants to take over this whole country and this whole world. And he's got to take his people out of there before they do. Because they also are taking over the agricultural, and they're making fruits and vegetables and things like that without seed. So if you don't get seed from that fruit and vegetable, you can't replant and create your own seed. Yeah. So therefore, if they control the food, and you have to come to them for the food. Yeah. I'm working on something. If he doesn't gather us, I'm working on something. I've been collecting my seed, my fruit out of my garden.
So we're going to have a commercial break here. Sister Fulton's going to come, and it says that he said, I would that you would prosper and be in health even as your soul prosper. So as we prosper, we want to be in health and eat the right things and have a healthy diet and put the right things in our temple, because our bodies are a temple. He said, destroy this temple, in 3 days I'm going to raise it up. He was talking about his body. So Mashiach called his body a temple. So let's look at what Sister Fulton, this is Sister Fulton. She's got something that she's going to put together, and she's already prepared it for us, so we get to taste it and get to try it here. So Brother Zeke, if you could kind of motion on over, and we're going to put the camera on Sister Fulton. Yay!
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
My name is Sister Vicky. I'm coming to you with this commercial of healthy eating. Okay. Part 2. Okay. That's not it. And Jaden is my helper. Amen. So what I got here is that some people are allergic to peanuts, certain kind of nuts, like my sister has a nut issue. And she's allergic to almonds or something like that, or pecans and walnuts. So believe it or not, I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. So we're going to pass out some cups, and then I'll tell you how I made it. And what don't kill you make you stronger. And trust me, there's no nut products in there. I haven't told you. I wanted you to try it before I tell you. And I have two kinds. I have savory and I have sweet. And the sweet, I tried to find a healthy sugar, but it's kind of hard, and it's expensive. And I was going to do honey. Somebody said what? It's still expensive. What? Okay. You should have passed it to the grown-ups first. Come on, Jaden, here's some more.
Is it best to use liquid?
No, you need the ones already got stuff in there. You passing out empty cups?
Yeah.
Here, pass out the cups with the stuff in there. I'm gonna have to trade you in for another assistant. Good thing he ain't getting paid, huh? And what I did is I used my own spices, and you could just try some of them. And it's pretty much, some of them are bland because I wanted you to try it first, and then we'll go from there. Now, the dark ones are sweet. The colored ones are savory. Come on, Jaden. Come on, pop. Okay, Kelly, you get one? Okay.
You didn't explain what these nuts are.
I haven't explained what's in there.
No, what is the nut?
I haven't explained what they are yet.
No,
No, they're not nuts.
Chickpeas.
Chickpeas. Yeah, and you sometimes if you didn't know what they were and you tried them, they taste just like nuts.
You want us to wait till everybody has it, or you go ahead and try?
No, you go ahead and try the colored ones first. And then what you could do, you can put barbecue seasoning on there. Yeah. This is Marcellus, like chicken, Marcellus. You can put that on yours. And you can go buy a can of these for $1.19 at the World Market. Because I couldn't find that at Hy-Vee or Walmart.
They got them at Aldi.
I like the
savory.
See? Yeah.
The savory. I like the sweet.
I need one more for Noah.
Go ahead.
Sweet too. Yeah, sweet too. The popcorn seeds. There you go.
Yeah. No, they're all chickpeas. And here's some. And then I'm going to send these around. These are the ones I bought already done. And these right here were already done. You just let them try. And you can tell the difference. You don't have to buy your own. You can make your own. Just get a can of chickpeas, roast them in your air fryer. Yeah, it only takes like 30, 35 minutes to roast them. And I had two different kinds. I had a can of these, and these are fava beans and fava beans and chickpeas. See, I'm not a southern person, so I don't know a lot about these beans. You know, you got to be from the South to know a lot about these beans. Different kinds of beans. They got black-eyed peas, they got split peas, they got all kind of lentils. And this right here has different kinds. This is a different kind of bean.
Question: Is it better to use liquid sugar, or granulated?
But believe it or not, you're eating granulated. And this is what I did. I took my coffee grinder and I put the cinnamon stick and that you gave me, the cinnamon stick and the white regular sugar in my coffee grinder, and I ground it into a pulp, and it came out powdered sugar, and it mixed up together. Did you ladies try it? You too? Did she? Well, these came in a container, and then I added these to the savory, and those are the ones that look like the sweet, look like cheeses on them. This has sweet chili in there. So I tried to mix them, and then with the savory, what I wanted to do is bring some. I had them at home and I forgot them, and they were chocolate chips, and I was going to mix them with raisins, and that is excellent. And it's like you could eat them on the trip. You could, sit at home and eat them while you're watching TV. If you get hungry for something crunchy, instead of going for a cookie, you can go for these. You can sweeten them. You can flavor them any kind of way you want to. And it was weird because I tried it raw, and it tastes like peas, flavored peas. I rinsed them off and put them in the air fryer, seasoned them up myself. Tasted totally different, and it was really weird, and it was pretty good. So if anybody want any more, I don't know. So you could do that, exactly, and that's what it tasted like.
I like the taste of yours better than the store-bought one.
Yeah, that's what I said. You could do it. You could do it any kind of way you want to, and you could flavor it any kind of way. We're done, Bishop. Here, give me another cup. Sure.
Okay.
Okay, this is the regular. These are chickpeas.
Okay.
I made.
Chickpeas?
Chickpeas.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
The other ones don't have that flavor.
This is what I'm saying. You can make your own instead of buying this. I think it was $5 or something. And you could get a can for $1.99 and rinse them off. And while you're roasting them in the oven, you can roast them in your home oven too, and the air fryer. And you can flavor them any kind of way you want to, with whatever you want.
So this is kind of like a snack. It's like a snack.
What kind you want?
Remember your G-bombs.
This is it. This is part of it.
Greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. Remember?
You use zucchini from my garden.
Oh, okay.
But them are from my garden. And then I made banana bread, and the bananas were from my garden.
So thank you. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Thank you. Can we say hallelujah? And we want to remember, thank you for putting that together, Sister Fulton.
Sure.
and we're going to be asking others who are preparing, because those who are online, those who are in the digital house and they're not here with us, but we come together, and just like we read in Acts chapter 20 and verse 7, they came together on the Shabbat and they broke bread. And so we break bread. We have some good eats here, good meal, good food prepared, and it's all kosher. We have kosher meals and kosher snacks, which is good for us. He wanted us to put good, healthy things into our bodies. That's why he told them, this is what you can eat and this is what you don't eat. Because I think he knows what's best to put in our bodies, since he made the bodies, since he made us. So he knows what we should put in our bodies. And so we have, because we got some that's in the digital house, they don't know, but we have some good eats here. We've got some good food here. We got people who prepare good meals, and
Made with love.
and so yeah. And what's that word for love again? What? Because we said haba. No, haba is he cometh, or he that cometh. What? Rahab. Was that it? Rahab. Love is Rahab. Because we said that when Pastor Johnson was here, and
Yeah, he said a lot of Hebrew words.
yeah, he said a lot of Hebrew words. I was trying to pick up on him.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
but what I want to say is we got the Shabbat, or we got the Shabbat coming up. We have Tabernacles coming up, and we're going to be at Kickapoo State Park with Pastor Johnson and fellowship from Indianapolis, Indiana. We have currently 7 lots that are reserved. And September 1st, what day does that come on? September 1st. Does anybody know what? Oh, I got a calendar right here. That's on a Wednesday, September 1st. So between September 1st and September 4th, which is that Shabbat, I like to have everybody cover their lots. Now, we've already reserved them, and each lot is $34. And that $34 is for all 3 days. So Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night is just $34 for your lot. Now, right now, and we can go over the list that I have, but we have 9 families right now, so there's going to be 2 lots where we'll have 2 families on that lot. They've already said that we could put up 2 tents per lot. So there's a couple of lots right now that has 2 families on it. And those 2 families, if you have a shared lot, if you're sharing a lot, then your lot commitment is only $17. So it's $34 a lot unless you share it, and then it's $17 per family. Now, you can get with me, and we're going to try to assign the lots by September 4th. Between September 1st and September 4th, pay your lot commitment so that we can get all those lots covered. It costs more than that, but the ecclesia, we are supplementing it. We're supplementing it because the total cost is it's comes to like $67 for all 3 nights. But the church is covering, and then the ecclesia is covering, and then you guys just have to pay $34, or if you share a lot, $17. Is that clear? Is that clear? Okay. Okay. The dates we're going to be there is September 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th. So we'll be pitching our tents at 3 o'clock on the 24th, and we have to have our tents down and out by the 3 o'clock on the 27th. Now, I would suggest, if you have a tent, know how to put it up and then sleep in it a night or 2. That's what we did. We put up a tent and we slept in it in our backyard. We slept in it, and it was not comfortable. I'll be totally honest. It was not comfortable. We had an inflatable mattress, but it was not comfortable. And so what are you saying? Well, he left his comfort zone. He left his comfort zone, and he came down here and he tabernacled in a body of flesh. And so he told his people, I want you to do this once a year. Come out of your comfort zone. Come out of your comfy, fluffy, king-size beds. And all the amenities you have, all your insulation and shelter and roof and everything. I mean, it didn't rain on us, but you want to get you a tent that you could put some, I've got a little rain. It's called a rain. What is it called? A rain fly. I think is what that I put over my tent so that if it did rain, it doesn't come into the tent. But it was not comfortable, but we made it. We made it. And that was just one night. I would suggest you know how to put your tent up and tear it down and then sleep out there for a night or two. Know what you're up against, because I'm telling you, we get out there where it's a 3-hour drive from here. Ain't no coming home. Man, I didn't even sleep a wink last night. I'm going home. It ain't gonna be like that. We gonna be out there, 3-hour drive. So I would say, if you've never camped, that you should get into your tent and inflate it and know what it feels like.
Elder, will we get help buying tent?
Yeah, there'll be a supplement for those who do not have a tent and you want to buy a tent. Now, in order to, we'll give you a supplement and then because the tents depends on how many's coming with you. There's those 2-person tents. They're just real little. They'll just pop right up right here by this table here. They just pop right up, and you just get a sleeping bag and just sleep in that tent. So it's the Feast of Tabernacles or the Feast of Booths or the Feast of Tents. That's what it is. And we're going to have some teachment. We'll have some teachment leading up to that. The tabernacles and what it is. Yes, you have your hand up.
It said for anybody that wanted to, because this was a fun feast, that anybody that wanted to decorate their tents with lights, they're not having a competition or anything, but anybody that wanted to decorate their tents, your choice, you don't have to, with lights to kind of just make it more festive, like those lights hanging around your tent. But on another note, you're going to need some lights outside your tent regardless, because when we had ours up, we had 10 ropes that
Guidelines.
were in the ground.
Guidelines.
So people won't be tripping over other people or your own tent, for that matter, because in the dark you cannot see those ropes at all.
No. When the sun goes down, if you ain't got no lights, it's gonna be dark.
Some solar lights. Get some solar lights and some glow sticks.
Yeah, I mean, we got some of those solar lights we're going to put up around our tent, and we got lights. We're buying lights. In fact, we're going to give out, we got some gifts. We're going to give out. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but we got some gifts we're going to give out to every family. Every family that's going, we're going to give out some gifts that you'll find very helpful on your Feast of Tabernacles while you're out there. In the wilderness.
Any hints what it
We're
could
going,
be?
huh? Any hints? I mean,
Edible or non-edible?
Oh, it's not edible. It's not edible. We're gonna have food there, but there's gonna be some meals that you just have to. If you're used to getting up in the morning and having breakfast, well, you better make sure you got some breakfast food there. Because we're not serving breakfast. We're gonna have a big meal on the Shabbat, where the whole fellowship is gonna get together on the Shabbat and feast. And then on the first day of the week, we're going to have a teaching on the Shabbat. Somebody's going to sit in Moshe's seat, and we're going to teach. And then that's on the Shabbat. And then on the first day of the week, when we have that feast together, the brothers will be in the camp, and the sisters will be in the camp, and we'll have something for our children, something for the children to do. And then we'll probably just come together for one last little meeting before, as far as a huge fellowship. On the first day of the week. And then if you're used to having midnight snacks, then you better bring them. And we've been watching some camping meals, and if there's any wildlife out there, they're not coming after you, they're coming after the food. So if you are used to sleeping with a plate of food by your bed, by your head, you might have somebody trying to find that food because they're coming after that food. So we're not going to keep any food in our tent. Where we're sleeping, we're not keeping any food in the tent. We're going to have, No, we're just going to have a auxiliary tent where we're going to put up, where we'll have a lot of our food and stuff. So if there is anything, that's where they'll go. Then,
100 feet from your tent.
that somebody, they put them up like 100 yards from their tent. They would put 100 yards away. They put their food because they're sleeping out in the wild and they hunt for food.
Wait, what animals gonna be around?
I seen deer, and probably some rabbits and
They don't mention there's coyotes.
yeah, but they're trying to find food.
What about the mountain lions?
They're trying to find food. So
We have them here.
I just don't want them sniffing around where I'm sleeping. Don't be sniffing around where I'm sleeping. If you want some food, it's over there. You can always replace food. You can go down the street. There's a Love's about 2 miles down the road. You can go get you another pound of food if you lose it or something. Yes.
You're probably going to want to make sure you have sleeping bags. Because Saturday night, when we got in not Saturday night.
That was Thursday night.
Thursday night, we got in the tent. I was hot as all get out.
Yeah, it was warm.
But in the middle of the night, I did have to put a sleeping bag on because it got that chilly. And this was the month of August. So it is going to get cold. Even if it gets like in the 70s, it'll probably dip down.
Overnight lows. Yeah.
So it will be chilly at night.
Yeah.
I know last year we used the heaters.
Yeah, because there's electrical hookups there. There's electrical hookups, so you can stay warm. You just have to prepare. You have to prepare, and I would say, go out, do it one night, just so that so you know how you'll feel when you wake up and how you feel the next day. Because we woke, it's like, woo, man, that was not comfortable. That was not comfortable, in all honesty. So. But we have to remember what the Mashiach did. I mean, because he said a body was prepared for me, and then he put his spirit in that body. He says he came and tabernacled with us. That's why they call him Emmanuel. He came and tabernacled with us. So,
are you familiar with the portable showers?
Yes, yeah.
Do you know how much they range?
No, you have to ask Sister Hazel.
They range between $20 and $40 or greater, like 100. And then the little bag that you hang with the water that comes out, and it's about 5 gallons of water. Those are probably about $10. They have she was saying that the new shower that they got built there, they got showers. They're personalized showers, so you don't have to be naked in front of everybody.
You have your own shower. You walk into the shower house, and they've got showers lined up on both sides, and you walk through the door, lock the door, just take your shower. You're going to want to take your towels and your clothes with you so that when you come out of that door,
Like a swimming pool.
Public swimming pool. So are the restrooms there too?
Yes.
The shower area?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's public restrooms and a shower house. And I think in that shower house, I think they got like 8 individual showers, I think, something like that.
Well, you got buckets at home just in case at night, want to go, that's no good bathroom.
You got a portable toilet.
But do you know that it's in the book? I read it in Deuteronomy. That and somebody could kind of look it up. It has to do with something about a shovel or something. It's in Deuteronomy. But they were supposed to, when they went out into the wilderness and stuff, they were supposed to bring their shovel because they would dig a hole and then that's where they would leave their waste and then they put the dirt back over it. That's in Deuteronomy. Yeah. because it was mainly for the soldiers when they went out there. They were supposed to have, and that's where they would defecate. They would do whatever in that hole that they dug. Then they cover it back up, And
Dig a hole and go?
huh?
You said dig a hole and go?
Well, that's what they did. They would have a little shovel and they would dig a hole in the ground. And this guy, huh?
You gonna do that?
No, but if I was,
By the time we get the shovel out and dig the hole, we done gone already.
He might try it.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But they tell you if you do it, you don't want to do it around the river basin or around water or anything because of the runoff. It'll eventually get into the water. So you have to get away from the river basin, away from the water, and dig your hole 6 to 8 inches down. And depending on how much you plan on dumping in the hole, you make it round, wide enough, and deep enough. Because if it's for your son or your daughter, they're not going to do a lot, then you don't have to be the diameter doesn't have to be as big. But yeah, you might have to put, make sure you got it, the diameter and the depth. You got to go 6 to 8 inches down. But the people that we were watching that was doing this, they were sleeping out they were sleeping out in the wild. It wasn't at a campground. It was not at a campground. So we're going to be at a campground where there's going to be bathroom facilities, restrooms, men and women's, and then there's going to be shower houses. So that's going to be there. And then a lot of people will bring their own portable shower and portable toilet because people had it out there. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can still do that if you want to.
And you put them in water and they spray them full.
They got soap on them.
Yeah, non-rinse, clean or whatever.
Yeah, non-rinse.
Mm-hmm. So, but to answer your question, we're going to supplement those who are buying. If you don't have a tent, we'll help you buy a tent. Yeah. So you just have to come to, we got to set something up and just come to me and then we'll, or if this is your first tent that you're buying, and you go ahead and you bought it, bring us the receipt, and we can, we're not going to reimburse you the full amount, but we'll help you. Because I hate, what I'm trying to avoid is set a dollar amount now, because if you set a dollar amount, you can get a whole tent for a certain dollar, but somebody who's getting a 12-person or, 10-person tent, well, that ain't doing nothing. So I want to wait till, what kind of tent are you purchasing, and then, we'll help you according to that.
But aren't me and Sister, are we sharing a lot?
Yeah, I did have the Thompson and the Fultons is on one lot. And so, and you could put up 2 tents on that lot. So,
not under the sun. Not under the stars. I don't think
okay.
Speaking of guns, who's all bringing their guns?
Well, I got to talk with Pastor Johnson about security. Now they do have state troopers that or not state troopers. They're called park troopers. That they they patrol the area. Because we were there. We might have been there about an hour, and within that hour I seen them do a patrol, and they just drive slowly through. I think they just do it just to let everybody know. Yeah, we're here. We're here. I don't know. I just see them slowly drive through. I don't know. I can't speak on that. But we're going to talk about our security. But the state of Illinois does not recognize any other state right to carry. I don't care what state you're from. Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri. It don't matter. Illinois does not recognize no other state license to carry. So if you do have a license to carry, you have to be a resident in Illinois.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can look it up. That's it. That's the carry. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the only one that we have in our assembly